Okay. Good evening, everyone. I would like to announce that a quorum is present. The meeting has been duly called, and notice of the meeting has been posted in accordance with Texas Open Meetings Act. We'll now convene into closed session as authorized by Texas Government Code Section 551, specifically 551.071, 072, 074, and 082. The time is 6 p.m.
Dr. Ferguson?
There's Karen.
No, I'm ABD in 4 weeks.
Okay.
So I'll get everybody here to write that paper.
Like
We're rolling. I tell you,
Karen next door.
I'm living fit.
Karen, high school theater pattern. Yes.
You come back to give them a number 10 question.
We are, yes.
We're going to change the...
Yes, I should write the answer down for you, right? So you can check it for me.
Yeah, you better.
Okay, where's your
we might
scratch
not,
paper?
We might not be able to figure it out.
Let me borrow your pen right there.
F of X equals
Make
Y.
sure that I ask them the right question this time. I don't say cubed. Okay.
Thank you.
They're supposed to know the answer?
They should know the answer.
Okay.
No, it's a good idea.
Good to see you, Tom. Did you see my email about the shared tennis?
Right away.
To kind of lead the charge, and want to pitch to the city. Why don't they build a pro shop on their own land east of Marcus? Until we get to that park, and they could do parking, and they can do there, and then that way they don't have to worry about anything with us, and it's entangled, and we can have a shared use. We don't have to worry about a facility. I wish it was mine.
Second again.
Okay.
Tell me about it.
I have my volume on here. I have it completely.
Waiting for the minute. It's 6:59. Hey, kid's gonna watch it. I still have 6:59. Good evening, everyone. The time is 7 o'clock. We will now reconvene into an open session. Will you please all join me at the Pledge of Allegiance? Flag of the United States of America and the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. We need to consider items discussed in closed session. Ms. Duke?
I move that all personnel recommendations be approved as presented, including all resignations, new hires, administrative and teacher probationary term contracts to include extension of teacher probationary and term contracts, extension of a 4-year probationary contract, non-renewals of term contracts, termination of a probationary contract, extension of administrative contract inadvertently left off last month's recommendation. Sorry.
I have a motion, Ms. Duke. I need a second. Ms. Foudy? Questions? All in favor? That is unanimous. Moving on to awards, recognitions, and presentations. Scott Finch, would you please come to the top? Oh, sneaky.
Thank you, Ms. Kyer. It's my honor this evening to introduce one of our students. I'd ask that he'd come up here and join me. His name is Yash Patel. Yash, come on up. Josh is here tonight because he's been perfect. As a matter of fact, he scored a perfect score on his SAT test that he took this year. Joshua was most recently recognized as well down at the Texas Legislature by our representative in the Hebron community, Mr. Ron Simmons, here recently down at the Capitol. So he's been recognized down there as well. One other thing I want to let you know, just to show you how bright Josh is, he's also just a junior at Hebron High School as well. So Josh has a great future in front of him, and I want to recognize his parents. Are here tonight, Mr. and Mrs. Patel, along with Yash's grandmother. And Yash's sister, Alicia, is here tonight with us also. So, nice job, Alicia. So it's my honor to present Yash to you, and we're very proud of him and look forward to having him back next year as a senior at Hebron High School.
Well, I guess we can all guess who's the smartest one in the room is, right? Congratulations. Okay, moving on to Lamar Middle School State Archery winners. Dr. Rogers?
Yes, Ms. Kyer, I'd like to introduce Ms. Leanne Lewis, the principal of Lamar Middle School.
Thank you. I'm here to honor some wonderful students here, and there's several coming in. I'm going to have them go ahead and all come in together. The first ones up here are my 6th grade archery team, and I want to tell you a little bit about this, just real briefly. Mr. Bavasset, who just came in, is the outdoor trails teacher, and students are introduced to archery in the outdoor trails program. But once they're introduced, the commitment comes before and after school to practice, and they spend hours practicing to compete at the state archery competition in February. And we have, standing here before you, the 6th grade state champions as well as the 7th and 8th grade state champions in the state of Texas. And let me add that there are over 5,000 students who compete at the state level. It's high school kids as well as middle school and elementary. I have 3 individual state champions, and I'm going to have them step forward. Ashton Wyatt is our 8th grade middle school state champion, and let me tell you that a perfect score is 300. Ashton scored 294, which is now the state record. And that state record includes all high school kids as well. I have Abby King, if Abby King will step forward. Abby King is the female state champion and record holder as well. And Abby shot a 287. And then we also have the 6th grade state champion, Nicholas Elmore. Archery is just a place in outdoor trails where kids who sometimes don't have a place to fit in find a place, and it's a really great program, and we're very fortunate to have it. These kids, when they get to high school, can compete for over $150,000 at nationals, which these kids are going to in May to compete at the national level. So, congratulations, guys.
Way to go, guys. Way to go, Lamar. Go Longhorns.
$39. $39. Okay, next, number sense winners. Dr. Riddell and, oh, Lori Rapp. Mr. Ferguson, you going to be coming up too? Oh, come on. You got your shoes on? Okay, that's good.
Good evening. I'm pleased to have a special treat in welcoming back our former board member, Tom Ferguson, to help present these certificates. This number sense competition is near and dear to his heart. He started the competition, and we have supported him in carrying it out and honoring the students who win. So I'm going to let him tell you a little bit about what these students have to do before we bring them up here. So we're not done with who's smart in the room yet.
We're going to show you some smart kids in a minute. When I left here, I said the cemeteries are full of people who thought they were indispensable. So I have no illusion I'm indispensable. On the other hand, it's nice to leave a legacy and think that they're carrying on the tradition. I started writing a number sense test every Christmas Eve. That's the first thing I do in the morning 10 years ago. So the students said it was a little bit hard, but easy. I don't know, it's 80 problems. They have 10 minutes. They have to do it all in their head. And I'm going to show you an example of a problem that they're going to do here in a minute when we call them up here. But anyway, it's a great privilege to come back and see your SA2 students, archery, all this great stuff. This is a great school district, and it's really great to have been part of it for 9 years as a board member. And now just to live here and pay taxes. I want to talk to you guys about that. Okay. Miss Rapps can read the names because she can see.
Okay, so we're going to recognize, first of all, our third place overall winner from Flower Mound High School, an 11th grader, Lakshmi Menon. Our second place winner who could not be with us tonight, so I'll go ahead and announce who that was. It was Enrud Sivakumar from Hebron High School. He's an 11th grade student. Our first place overall winner answered 66 of the questions completely correct. You're not allowed to have a calculator or scratch paper or erase. You must go with your first answer. Not only is this student the top student overall, but was also the top freshman. And the student's from Flower Mound High School, Aditya Duravasala. And then we also like to recognize the team who placed overall, had the top score, and it was the Flower Mound High School team, and we're going to bring up their other team member, who is Naharika Koka.
second, I'm going to ask them a question. Y'all ready? Raise your hand. I'll give you the microphone. Dr. Burnett has this sealed in an envelope over there. He's going to open it up now. You ready, Dr. Burnett? Make sure I say it right. 65 squared plus 195 squared. Who's got it?
42250.
How do you like that? That's some serious math ability, guys.
We want anyone in the audience who also had that answer to come up and take your photo with it.
Good job, guys.
Thanks,
Good
Tom.
job.
See you back next year.
Thank you, Mr. Ferguson.
It's always great to see our kids that are succeeding so well. The SAT thing, I mean, they talk about testing. Our students, all our students can just take the SAT, and that's a perfect example of what they've learned and everything like that, instead of having the 15 end-of-course exams that they have to go through. The same. Okay, moving on up to the request to address the board. Persons desiring to address the Board of Trustees must fill out a speaker's card. I have 39 of them prior to the meeting. No presentation shall exceed 3 minutes, and the board cannot deliberate on any subject that is not included on the agenda. Well, I don't think we have to worry about that. So, and I would ask if you have somebody that has spoken before you and you would like just to say, I agree with the person, and you can give their name. If you don't want to do the whole 3 minutes, that works too. So moving on. Joyce Fuel.
Good evening.
Good evening.
On behalf of UEA, we'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening.
And the Lewisville UEA chapter is very appreciative of the hard work that you all do. And we would love to give you all bountiful gifts. However, due to policy, we would like to present you with a check made out to Elief. And we know that education is so near and dear to your heart, so we hope that this is a sign of appreciation that you can see.
We really appreciate, it's a check for $150. Thank you very much. This is, really do appreciate that. Make sure I don't lose it. Put it right here. Okay, that's it. One more. No, I'm just kidding. Cameron Stevens. And if I mess up anybody's name, I really apologize. I do my best.
Hi, my name is Cameron Stevens, and I currently have a second grader at Liberty Elementary. My home address is 6415 Meadowcrest Lane. I live west Flower Mound off of Shiloh and 1171 behind the fire station. Obviously, we all know that there's a bit hot topic tonight about relocating our current feeder program from Liberty into Shadow Ridge Middle School. As of right now, Liberty is not a split school. I would really like to keep it not a split school, just for, my own selfish reasons, also all the kids' reasons. And if the thought that you have thought at all that you would return our area to McCamey and keep south of Wichita going to Shadow Ridge, that's not really even worth your number game that you're trying to do as far as balancing the schools out. That would only be 13% versus a third of the school. So I would say if you're going to do something, to keep it all together so that there's more students going together than not. My last point would be that there are activities and electives at McCamey that are of more interest to my son than to me and to probably a lot of people that have the same feelings. Just as the archery club was up here, I know that's an outdoor elective and adventures, and I know, I mean, my son is an avid archery person, so he really likes to do that. Spanish is also another elective, and then video graphics. And those are just all just some things that my son has expressed interest in doing, which are not available even at Forest Wood or at Shadow Ridge. So thank you for your time, and I hope that you guys really think it over before you make the decision. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mark Lagasse? Lacasse, C. Oh, that's a C. Thank you, sir.
Before you all vote today on your planned rezoning, I would like you to consider one small change regarding study areas 171, 173, and 174. These three study areas comprise one very unique neighborhood within the Lewisville ISD and within the town of Flower Mound. From this neighborhood, kids cannot access any other part of Flower Mound or Lewisville ISD via a sidewalk, a bike path, or even a horse trail. The only way in and out of this wonderful neighborhood is via a vehicle utilizing FM 1171. Currently, 43 middle school kids in this area experience a very long bus ride. It averages 40 to 50 minutes. Today was 44. I followed it, and another parent in this room today followed the bus, so we have accurate data. Starting next year, the town of Flower Mound will begin construction on 1171, which will dramatically impact the commute. Speed limit on 1171 will be dropped to 40 miles an hour. On certain days, at certain times, it will be down to one lane in each direction. The construction will only affect this neighborhood and these three study areas. We already have a 45-minute commute. You, nor I, nor anybody knows how long the commute is going to be once construction starts. But safe to say, it will be over 1 hour. If the kids in these study areas are moved to Shadow Ridge, their commute will be unbelievable. Thus, on the behalf of the 43 kids who live in these three study areas who are not impacted in any school, I hope you will consider to leave them in the Liberty, McCamey, Flower Mound feeder system. If you don't like that idea, our kids can go to Downing, which is the closest middle school to where we live. We don't care about the feeder system, you do. We want our kids to go to local schools, the closest to our area, and not have a 1 hour bus ride. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next name I have is Susan Brown.
Good evening. My name is Susan Brown, and I currently reside on Hidden Trail in the Mill Estates of West Flower Mound. It's directly off of Shiloh and 1171 behind the fire station. I have an 8th grader at McCamey who is a proud graduate of Liberty Elementary. Prior to moving to Flower Mound 3 years ago, we were a 10-year resident of West Plano attending LISD schools. Those of you who are on the board that were serving or were being elected that following year should remember the rezoning attempts of the West Plano children. I now think there's something against the West kids. After surviving that rezoning and now attempting this rezone. Although my children will not be affected because they will be in high school next year, it does affect my neighborhood, my future as a homeowner, and for that I feel the need to speak to you. I'm asking that as the board elected and standing on principles to do what is right for the children, you will vote no for this rezoning proposal. and no to the splitting of Liberty Elementary. In the words of Mike McDaniel, who I understand graciously proposed this boundary at the last hour, I offer you these words spoken by him at a meeting to LSD in 2011. Our district has to be returned to the stakeholders, the taxpayers, the community members, and parents. We must get back to open and transparent governance. We have to allow these stakeholders a voice in the direction, and the stakeholders of this community deserve better. I deserve better, my neighborhood deserves better, and most importantly, my children do. Thank you for your time. Please vote no for this proposal and set our proximity to Liberty and McCamey. Thank you.
The next name I have is Josh Martin.
Hi, I want to thank you for hearing the citizens of Western Flower Mound tonight before you're voting on redistricting the school zones. My name is Josh Martin. I live on Emerson Lane, just off the intersection of High Road and 1171. I want to let you know about our grave concerns in the latest proposal of redistricting. It's my understanding that you will vote yes or no to accept the latest proposal map this evening. I hope you'll vote no due to the detrimental impact this proposal will have on families in the Western Flower Mound community. I have a first grader at Liberty and a couple of kids that are coming up behind her, so a couple of younger ones. I know this has been a very long process for you and not an easy one. I recognize that, but you've not heard previously from a lot of us out west, mainly due to the common sense of other proposals like the map proposed on February 27th. This map did not split up any elementary schools in the area and did not have our kids traveling up to 10 or more miles to the other side of town to attend middle school, when the more logical choice is the closest school, McCamey, is 5.8 miles from my house. Due to the timeline of the introduction of this new map, we've not had a chance to illustrate the immense impact this will have on the lives of the families and children in our area. Our children riding the school buses, based on my commute in the morning, I estimate that the drive will take up to 75 minutes in the morning via school bus, approximately 15 to 20 minutes longer each way versus bus travel to McCamey. This adds up to at least an additional 30 minutes of bus time per day total, or over 2.5 hours of bus time per week to and from school. Keep in mind that this is in addition to the already 7 or more hours kids from our area are already spending every week on the school bus. This takes away from real homework time and real sleep time. We're talking about a commute longer than either my wife or I have to go to work. This will impact our family by requiring longer travel times and traffic to get our kids to school for any tutoring, sports events, or other extracurricular activities, sometimes multiple times per day and certainly per week. You've had other families from other areas that are worried about having their lives changed by having to get used to a new 10-minute bus ride when their children now walk or bike to school. I ask you to weigh the 10-minute inconvenience against a child who has to potentially spend over an hour on the bus traveling literally across town twice a day. This doesn't make much sense, does it? Furthermore, these commute times will be increased for my family and others around us due to the expansion of 1171 width west of Shiloh Road starting soon. So I ask you to vote no, please, on the proposal, including the latest map, and reconsider voting yes on the map proposed on February 27th. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next name I have is Michelle Fisher.
Hi, my name is Michelle Fisher, and I live at 6664 Orchard Drive, which is the southernmost point of Shiloh Road. The numbers on my shirt are the numbers which my children currently travel to school. My son is a 7th grader at McCamey Middle School. He travels 36 minutes currently. My daughter is a 9th grader at Flower Mound High School. She travels 47 minutes. We live in the western portion of Flower Mound that is now being affected by the most recent boundary proposal. We live in a subdivision that has over 90 homes and one central bus stop for all of our kids where they meet and get on the bus. The following are what I feel the 9 most important aspects of consideration by the board. First is the safety of our children. Children who are on the bus longer, traveling on 24.99 during morning rush hour traffic, potentially could encounter more difficulty, accidents, other situations. Second, road construction on 1171 for the next 2 years will make the bus ride and transportation even more difficult. Third, parents having to travel further for extracurricular activities, tutoring, band, sports, etc., several times a day per child. The proximity to the most important thing is the proximity to the closest school. The nearest school, middle school to us, is McCamey. There is no other option. Fifth is the no advance notice. We were blindsided and not given the same opportunity to discuss any plan because we were never affected by the previous 2 plans. Sixth, we moved out here believing that a new middle school would be built. Land has been zoned for one for the last 10 years, but we don't have one. Seventh, new developments in Lakeside with housing and apartments will raise SRMS numbers and require rezoning again, most likely in 3 years' time. Eighth, the board expressed a desire for a long-term plan. The current proposal is not a long-term plan or a solution. And ninth, the most important, no elementary student should be separated going into middle school, which is the most difficult transition any child going to a new school can imagine. I asked the board to adopt the boundary map created at the February 27th workshop. While this map asked a couple of neighborhoods to make concessions, the affected students would be able to join their classmates at Shadow Ridge. The parents and students affected are not being asked to do anything more than what we are already doing and have been doing for the last several years. The map the board agreed on February 27th did not split an additional elementary school, and it would not require students to be on a bus to Shadow Ridge for an unacceptable length of time. I want to thank you for the time you take away from your own families to be here on the board, and that we have entrusted you to make decisions that affect all of the students in the most positive way. Please vote no to the currently proposed boundary map.
Thank you. Kendra Wagner.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kendra Wagner, and I live at 2800 Hastings Way. I have 2 little boys that are currently will be affected, or will be in a couple of years, maybe at the next rezoning. I have a couple of things I wanted to talk about. I implore you to consider the proximity as a major consideration. Take a dot at each school, draw a 2-mile circle around it. What's on the outside, keep them together as much as you can. I mean, people who bought close to their homes because that was our priority, a priority on our quality of life and the time that we could spend with our children at home. We could have bought further out, we could have bought in another neighborhood, but we didn't. We chose to live in an area that is close to school so my kids could walk. The second thing I would ask is to plan ahead. I know that my son that's going to be a 6th grader next year would be one of the first ones to go to the 9th grade academy. If the numbers are correct, if you look at the numbers right now of the kids that will be going into the 9th grade school, we are already at functional capacity without adding any of the Toll Brother or Lakeside kids. So this would be the time to start building onto that building in a plan instead of waiting till a year and a half and then adding portables. So that's another thing. The other thing you might think about is when the new development comes in, have them go where the capacity is. They're making a buying decision based on what they already know. So if they're okay with buying the home that they're looking at and knowing they would go to Forestwood or to Donald or wherever it might be, let them make that decision based on information they know. We decided on the house that we bought 15 years ago for the very reason of having Wellington, McCamey, and Flower Mound High. So I think proximity would be a very good one. And my last point is just timing. I mean, I wish we could have known this stuff before now. I have a 5th grader that just almost every night, what are we doing? Where am I going to go? And I can't even tell him where he's going in less than 3 months. It's kind of scary. So I just ask that you keep proximity in mind because safety is an issue and timing and quality of life for our kids are important to us.
Thank you, Kendra. Amy Valenciano? Valenciano? Did I butcher it? I'm sorry.
Thank you for letting us come and talk to you. I know that all of you are working as hard as you can for the benefit of the kids. There's no doubt in our minds that that is the most important thing for you. So we appreciate all your thoughtful consideration. My name is Dr. Valenciano. I'm a veterinary pathologist. I went to veterinary school and then I specialized in pathology. So when I heard about the increased transit time for the kids out west, and I live off of Inlet Estates off of High Road, so I'm way out there. The first thing I thought was long ride, hot summers, hot even the fall, and no air condition. And when my kindergartner walked off the bus for the first time, we carried him back home because he was pretty heat stroke. And that was the biggest concern for me. I mean, I know for animals, we really tell people to make sure their car's air conditioned. We don't advise them driving around. And kids are some of the most vulnerable out of all of us. The young and the elderly, their central nervous systems are still developing in the young, and they're compromised in the old. And so these extended rides with the heat is a real medical concern, I think, for a lot of kids. Kids don't hydrate well. They don't have really good thermoregulatory mechanisms. Kids that are on ADHD and ADD medications, some of those medications result in the inability to stay hydrated or know when you need to be hydrated, and they compromise a lot of those things. Humidity and other health concerns, like any kids that might have underlying heart disease, lung disease, asthma, those can all exacerbate problems with the heat. And that was the thing that really came to my mind. I'm worried about them. I wouldn't want that on my shoulders, knowing that they have that extended kind of commute in that heat, and there's no air condition. And I don't care if the windows are down, it's not enough. I wouldn't put my animals on in a bus like that. I wouldn't put my grandma. I don't want to put my kids on it. So I'm really worried about that. Also, the increased time will also, just like others mentioned, decrease time for the kids to get home and do their activities. They get off the bus, they're fried when it's really hot. They don't want to do their homework. They're fried. And I know from taking field trips, I'm the same way. I'm done for the day. We worry about recess when it's real hot. We put the kids indoors when it's hot for recess. We put them indoors. We don't have PE when it's hot, but it's okay to get on the bus. And when your body temperature reaches 104, you're going to go into some serious problems. And just because you don't have a kid that's in the hospital getting IV fluids doesn't mean they don't have organ damage. It's scary. So the other thing is, please don't split Liberty up. That's just really traumatic for the kids. I don't really see the need for that. We're the furthest out, we're going the furthest away. It just doesn't make sense. I'm not worried about the kids that don't get their little 5-minute walk. I'm worried about the kids that are going to be on that bus for that long time. It really worries me. So I really appreciate your time and your thoughtful consideration. Thanks so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Karen Small. Karen Small? Oh, she is.
Hi, my name is Karen Small. I'm a 6th grader at Shadow Ridge Middle School. I do request that you please grandfather in all 6th graders in whatever you end up doing tonight. The schools they go to now, those are their home schools. They really consider it part of their home. They don't want to leave their schools. So please let them finish out their years, if parents can come up with transportation, at the school that they started. I also implore you to consider equitable electives at all schools. Forest Wood does not have the same electives that Shadow Ridge and McCamey have. You need to look at the list. It's just not equitable. I know a lot of parents from Forest Wood had told me that they were looking forward to the rezone so that there would be more people at their school and they could finally get the electives that McCamey and Shadow Ridge have. Right now, I have not heard of any plans to increase the electives. My daughter at Shadow Ridge wanted to take band. They offer that. Her second elective was web design, not offered at Forest Wood. Third elective, strategies for success, not offered at Forest Wood. Fourth elective was Spanish 1A, not offered at Forest Wood. And her fifth elective was jazz band, not offered at Forest Wood. Now, I understand jazz band is a specialized elective and you have to have a teacher to teach that. but anybody can teach strategies for success. You need someone who's there who can teach web design. So you really need to look for these kids that are coming up and making sure that they have equitable electives, all 3 middle schools, please. I will give a shout out to the band directors at Shadow Ridge Middle School. Mr. Meredith and Mrs. DeSoto are 2 of your finest shining stars in this district. So any parents who do have to move from McCamey to Shadow Ridge, you will have a wonderful band program. I do assure you of that. Finally, if you must rezone, I really don't want you to, but I do ask that you follow everyone else out here and vote no to the rezone tonight. If you do it, give it a year. Please, there's a lot of upset people. Let it die down. I don't want the kids to be upset because their parents are upset. You don't want a bunch of kids starting 6th grade going, God, I don't want to really be at this school. And that's because they've heard their parents say, I didn't want you to have to be on the bus that far. Give everybody a chance to calm down. Maybe we'll even find something better in the next year. I'm still disappointed we haven't explored Forest Wood as a magnet school. There's so many options there. So let's look at all the options before you make a decision tonight. Thank you.
The next name I have is Shawnette Hannah. I'm going to make this a little easy. The one after Shawnette is Destina Wayland, if you want to be in the batter's box. Yes, you're right up next to her, after her.
And I live at 6518 Country Oaks Drive. That's west of Shiloh Road, behind the fire station. I've been a resident of Flower Mound for the last 10 years, and I have an 8th grader at McCamey and a 5th grader at Liberty Elementary. We moved from the east side of Flower Mound and purchased a home in the west side of Flower Mound about 5 years ago. At the time, we were told that a new middle school would be constructed by 2013, when my 5th grader would be going into 6th grade. That would have been our neighborhood middle school, and it would have been in close proximity to most of us on the west side of Flower Mound. My concern is that my children at this time, my 8th grader is already on the bus for about 40 to 45 minutes each way just to get to McCamey Elementary. On inclement weather days, the bus ride can be as much as an hour. Longer bus rides with no supervision increases the chances of bullying. We've already had a situation like that we've dealt with, and now we're expecting our children to be on the bus unsupervised for an even longer amount of time. As mentioned before, there are fewer high school credit courses offered at Shadow Ridge compared to McCamey, and I'm concerned that this late in the game, with registration having not happened, what are the odds of my child getting his first or second or even third choice of electives? Shadow Ridge is one of the smallest campuses, and it's going to be absorbing all of the new growth from the lakeside development. It seems to me that it would make more sense to wait until all of the new construction is further along or finished to really determine where the need is going to be before we go into this rezoning process. It seems to me that everyone desires a long-term solution, and what we're dealing with now is not a long-term solution. It's not fair to the children, it's not fair to the homeowners, and as representatives, I think that you can all agree that we do not want to have this massive disruption of our children and our families' lives by rezoning every couple of years. I feel like we have not been given the opportunity to voice our opinions in this because the proposed maps never included us. And at the 11th hour, this map was drafted. And so we're here today to discuss that and voice our opinions that we just feel like this is not the best solution for everyone. I respectfully request a no vote this evening. I feel we should not rush into this and vote just to vote. I recognize a lot of you have put a lot of time and effort into this process, but it doesn't mean we can't delay it. It will not be seen as a failure. What would be seen as a failure is if you leave your constituents feeling like they were not fully represented by you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Destina. And in the batter's box is Michelle Tell. Is the next person up after Destina.
Okay, start. My name is Justina Weiland. My children are zoned Wellington and McCamey.
I live 0.7 miles from McCamey. Respectfully, I stand before you to ask the board recognize the difference between walking proximity and driving proximity. Wellington students are walking proximity to McCamey. Only 49 of our students are eligible for busing services. I would ask that you continue to allow the rezone map to keep Wellington zoned for McCamey. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle? You get a group?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Michelle Tell, and these are some of the parents representing Morningside Elementary in the Colony.
I know it's very tough to have a job where when you make decisions, you're going to hack some people off. And I know that's very tough because all of us here want the best thing. Everybody here wants the best thing for their kids. And in many cases, it's very difficult for our kids to understand things such as budget and rezoning and all of these other factors. They don't get it. I have 3 daughters, and I've had to explain things to them like why other kids, her friends on her soccer team, get to take Spanish class at their elementary school, but I don't. And things like, why do my friends get to take drama classes at their elementary school and I don't? And I've had to explain those things to her. And in some ways they get it. But now at Morningside, they're going to take away our science teacher. And I'm having to explain to my child, whose favorite subject is science, that they're going to take away the science teacher. And I know you may feel that they're going to get that same science in class. But some of your decisions communicate something to our children. And we're in discussions about getting iPads for the school. But then we're taking away science, which is the very reason we have iPads in the first place. And some of your decisions send messages to our kids. And that decision to eliminate, even as simple as eliminating a science teacher, tells that child that science is not important. And as much as we tell them differently, our actions speak so much louder than our words. So I'd ask you to think about that as you make these decisions on something as important as science. And it may seem like just a simple thing as getting rid of a science teacher, but that message to our kids is heard much differently.
And I'll just speak real quick, and I filled out a card. I'm also a PTA president at Morningside and at Griffin as well, and I'm involved in the Insight Committee. And I know that you guys are volunteering in our voted positions, and I appreciate where the district is headed. But it concerns me as a parent that to learn that our science teacher is going to be placed back into the regular classroom, and then we have to eliminate another staff member. When I hear things like that and know that we are trying to provide technology for our kids, I'm all for that, but not at the expense of our teachers.
Brian Wade, 5541 Norris Drive in the Colony. I support what they said. I know I'm running out of time, but basically what they said, I support them as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have Michelle Doss.
Dennis Howard.
And Dennis Howard. Thank you.
Okay, the next name I have is Leanne Martin. Leanne? That is now, right? And Amy, and I can never pronounce your name right, I'm sorry. Amy Lazane is up next after.
Good evening. Thank you, members. I'm Leanne Martin, 6822 Redbud Drive, Redbud Point subdivision. I have a McCamey 7th grader and a Flower Mound High School sophomore. My concerns are as follows. Safety and well-being of our children, currently on the bus a minimum of 80 minutes a day, that's to and from. Add another 20 to 30 daily, that's 2 hours at least. Greater opportunity to be in harm's way due to the congested traffic. Road construction, western portion of Wichita Trail and proposed development of Lakeside, and additional congestion. Transport to and from after-school athletic events and tutoring, our weekly home life and schedule, homework, study time, family time will suffer as a result. My daughter's 8th grade McCamey class selection has already been chosen. Limiting her choices because of Shadow Ridge's fill rate
not affording her the same opportunities, options as other students, effectively altering her overall plan for graduation requirements. Being grandfathered is not an option. Both of us commute and work daily. Proximity has always been Liberty and McCamey. The committee was commissioned to look at all options with the restrictions, not to change school boundaries, yet that's what was done at the last minute, not affording we the people, the community that elected you, equal opportunity for communication discussion with the committee board versus action. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Amy's up next with Eliza Zwanberg. Who's up next after? Go ahead, Amy.
Good evening. My name is Amy Lassane, and I live on Sunnyview Lane, which is off of High Road in far west Flower Mount. I currently have an 8th grade student at McCamey and a 4th grade student at Liberty. I personally attended LISD for elementary, middle school, and high school. With this new map suggested by the Lewisville School Board at the workshop on March 28th and released on April 1st, the middle school you're now proposing, Shadow Ridge Middle School, is 9.8 miles from my home, and that number does not include bus time or distance. To provide perspective, the bus time to our current McCamey School is a minimum of 45 to 50 minutes each way. Continuing by bus to Shadow Ridge would require an additional 2.6 miles through heavy traffic at 2 of the busiest intersections in Flower Mound. Thinking this will add a mere 3 to 5 minutes to a bus ride is an inaccurate assumption. Please consider the following facts. Medlin Middle School, which is in Trophy Club, Northwest ISD, is closer to my house at 8.3 miles than the proposed Shadow Ridge. Hartpool Middle School, which is in Argyle, and Denton ISD is closer to my house at 8.2 miles. Argyle Middle School in Argyle ISD is closer to my house at 8.5 miles. Clayton Downing is closer to my house at 6.5 miles than the proposed Shadow Ridge. McCamey is closer to my house at 7.2 miles. If rezoning must occur, I ask you to adopt the map created at the February 26th workshop. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Eliza? And Michelle Turner's up next.
Good evening. Hello, my name is Elisa Zwanenberg, and I live on Lakeside in Red Bed Point neighborhood, south end of Shiloh. I have a 7th grader at McCamey, a 5th grader and 1st grader at Liberty. I implore you to vote no on the latest rezoning proposal. I am not against rezoning. If you were rezoning me to the middle school that was supposed to be built with the 2008 bond money next to Liberty, then I would be backing you 100% right now. People, including myself, no longer trust that you will use the bond money for the items stated in the bond package. Have you thought about how hard it's going to be to get another bond package passed at this point? You've stated that one of the key directives was not to split an additional elementary school between 2 middle schools, yet with the latest proposal, that is exactly what you have done. In addition, with the latest proposal, you are taking the area with the most of the new development and zoning it to the smallest middle school. We will be right back here in 2 years rezoning again, not the long-term proposal you stated you wanted. Yes, the February 27th proposal did ask certain neighborhoods to make small concessions, AKA the 23 kids who walked home on Friday afternoon. Yes, I sat in my car and counted. But I feel it is minimal compared to the sacrifice that you're asking my children to incur. Please do not use the latest proposal bus routes that were put on the website today. They are flawed. Let me give you an example. My neighborhood no longer has bus transportation to any school next year. We were left off the map. My son is on the bus 40 minutes today. I followed him. I went on to Shadow Ridge from there. It was an additional 12 minutes, and I hit all the lights. So I'm estimating it's 15 to 20 minutes additional. And getting rid of the first 3 stops in front of me is not going to impact my still bus ride. You stated that another key directive is proximity. I'm 5 miles from McCamey and 7 miles to Shadow Ridge. Doesn't sound like a lot when you think about 2 miles, but let me tell you and repaint the picture for you. Instead of being gone 30 minutes to pick up my son from practice, I'll now be gone 60 minutes. I drove it 3 times this week. That time is away from helping homework and helping my kids. Next year, it gets even worse because my 8th grader will have morning practice, which means I have to leave at the same time as my current 6-year-old gets up for school. So either I'll have to take him with me, drop my other 2 kids off at Shadow Ridge, go back to Liberty, and drop him off, then go back past that school to go to for my commute to work. And my commute is half the distance that my son's commute to middle school will be. I know, is your head spinning? Because mine is. What's the alternative? Hope that my 6-year-old can wake himself up, get to the bus stop without being abducted? I know you think I'm being overdramatic, but the attempted abduction several years ago was my neighborhood. McCamey is the closest middle school from my neighborhood, and therefore should be where my kids go to school. I asked you to adopt a map similar to the one created on the February 27th workshop. It's in line with all your stated directives. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, ma'am. Michelle Turner and Rich Vreeland. Rich Vreeland? Yes. Okay. He's up next.
Hi, my name is Michelle Turner. I live on Lost Creek off of High Road, and I have a 9th grader at Flower Mound High School, a 6th grader at McCamey, and a 3rd grader at Liberty. I am here to urge you to vote no on the latest proposed rezoning. To begin with, it currently takes my middle school son approximately 1 hour to get home. He consistently walks in the door at approximately 5 o'clock p.m. This commute time has been the same for the last 4 years. Rezoning us to Shadow Ridge would greatly increase the bus ride length to and from school, which I feel is completely unacceptable. There are serious health and safety concerns. When the Texas temperatures are high, my children already get off the buses sweaty and with red cheeks. In addition, the road construction will soon begin on 1171 from Shiloh on out west and won't be completed for several years. There is only one way in and out of the developments off of High Road. This will definitely increase the bus ride length of time. Secondly, I have a son with ADD. He requires medication twice a day. If he were to get home at 5:30 and then take his meds, he would be up until 10 or 11 or later. This would greatly reduce the number of hours he gets to sleep, making it more difficult to concentrate in school the next day. Third, my middle schooler has soccer 2 to 3 times a week at 5:30. Right now, it is very tight, but we are able to make it work. Being bused to Shadow Ridge would make it impossible. Let's forget about the logistics and complications of me having to sneak out of work to pick him up at 4 o'clock. Let's just say I leave and can go do it. In doing this, because I would also have the longer drive, my 8-year-old would then get off the bus and arrive at home alone and remain alone at the house for an hour. This is not ideal or safest situation for my youngest child. In addition, you have stated that you are for proximity. Well, for us in the western part of Flower Mound, McCamey is the closest. The land next to Liberty has been zoned for a middle school for at least the 10 years when we moved out there. In 2008, I voted for the bond thinking that the new middle school would be built. Instead, the money has been appropriated for other things district-wide. Lastly, we were given no notice to provide input. For over 6 months, the western neighborhoods were never affected in any previous plans. At the last minute, you blindsided us and moved the furthest western people to the furthest southern middle school. We deserve the same opportunity to voice our opinions as you allowed the rest of the town. At the last workshop, a few of you expressed concerns over splitting Liberty and moving us to Shadow Ridge. Please take to heart your concerns. We have the same ones. I asked you to adopt a map similar to the one created at the February 27th workshop. This map did not split an additional elementary school and did not put students on a bus for an unacceptable amount of time. Yes, it did ask certain neighborhoods to make small concessions, but I feel it is minimal compared to the much larger impacts my children would incur. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, ma'am. After Rich is Kendall Pretzer.
Good evening, board members, and thank you. My name is Rich Vreeland. My wife Ray and I moved off of High Road in West Flower Mound about 10 years ago in 2003. We chose Flower Mound primarily because we had young kids and we thought the exemplary schools would be a good fit for us, and the proximity to those schools was very important. We have 3 little girls. 2 of them are currently in Liberty Elementary, and we have a 3rd that's going to be starting there this fall. So we'll have 3 girls on the bus commuting to and from Liberty, and then all moving on to whichever middle school we choose here. Bus ride length is my biggest concern. They're on the bus 45 to 50 minutes just about every single day. And that's each way. If we move them to Shadow Ridge, that time is going to be increased dramatically. My daughters told me the other day that the school administrators at Liberty nicknamed School Bus 414 the tardy bus, because just about every single week that bus comes in late to school. My girls get to their classes late as well. We've already had a couple different issues. One time, my daughter Eva fell asleep on the bus. 45 minutes in the hot Texas sun in the back of a bus with no AC, it gets a little tiring. We had to start making phone calls to Durham and asking where she was, and it turns out she was just in the back of the bus. One of my neighbors had an even more scarier situation happen where their son was left on the bus all the way back to the motor pool. The bus driver checked the bus back in, and their son was still asleep in there. So we can't increase this. The road construction on 1171, the only way out to our neighborhood is 1171. If that construction, it'll definitely slow down the buses, again, increasing this commute. I believe Shadow Ridge is a great school. It's rated exemplary like McCamey. It's just not right for West Flower Mound. I also agree with some of the others that mentioned that we didn't have an advance notice. We've been looking at the maps that have been proposed ongoing, and our section of the city was never affected. Last week, a decision was made to put this new map in front of everybody, and we're scrambling, doing community events, getting everybody together to try and get your attention to let you know that this is not a good idea. I just plead to you guys to please do the right thing. Let's make a responsible decision here and vote no on this latest proposition. Thank you very much.
Sure. So I have Kendall Pretzer. P-R-T-Z-E-R. No? Okay. I'll hold it just in case. Then somebody named Jean. That's all I got. You the Jean on Sunset Trail? Yes. Okay.
Good or bad?
That's good. It's okay.
My name is Gene Stewart. I live on Sunset Trail, which is just right off of Shiloh Road. And I want to thank you guys for responding to some of the comments that I made around the last rezoning that was passed out, I guess, 7 to 10 days ago. Tough decisions got to be made. I get it. I understand it. And a lot of folks had mentioned about the impact on the kids. It's equally as heavy for the parents, for those of us that have kids that go to these schools. For me, I'm probably one of the more fortunate ones. I get an opportunity for my kids to be grandfathered in. That's still not a viable option in my mind, but I'm grateful that they have a chance to attend because of the grandfathering policy that the district allows. I've been listening to a lot of folks this evening, and they're talking about the bus rides. I shared that with the board. I'm similar bus rides with my kids. But I will say that it sounds like a lot of folks have not seen the last information that's been posted on the website. It shows the remapping of the buses and the time frames. And according to the website, it shows that one bus route would need to be added, and there was one bus number that would be impacted as far as the time that the kids would be on the bus. I got to hand it to you, very nice work on taking priority of that, because having kids on buses for a lengthy point of time, probably not a good thing for the parents, the kids, and even the bus drivers that drive those buses. So a lot of information is being passed, and the length of time for us to digest this information, as recently as today, the new bus routes were posted on the LSD website today. Doesn't give a whole lot of folks time to review that, to be educated on it, and to go over that. I don't know how many folks in this room have had a chance to go to the website and review that information. I got notice of that information at 5:45 at my 5-year-old's baseball game. So I was trying to review that and watch a kid's baseball game and make the best of that, try to review it, educate myself. So I know tough decisions have to be made, but I would challenge that those bus routes turned in by Durham and the length of time I cannot imagine how they can run those times and report back those times frames that are on the website, and they'd be factual information. So I would really like some time to review that and for some more discussion and dialogue. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Dana McGraw is the next name I have.
My name is Dana McGraw, and I'm here tonight to voice my concern with the latest maps that you have developed for the shifting of students. I have 5 children who are all attending LASD schools. I have a child at Liberty Elementary. I have 1 child in middle school, 2 at Flower Mound High School, and 1 in college now. I live south of Wichita Trail in the Emerald Bay subdivision. At the workshop, you seemed to indicate that once the construction was done on Wichita Trail, that we would have a much quicker transportation time. And while I agree with that, we will get some time back. The real issue is the construction that backs up once we get to McCamey Creek. On a good day, it's crazy, and on a bad day, it's worse. Let me give you an example. Last week, on the first day of STAR testing, I had to, at the last minute, deliver something to McCamey Middle School right in the thick of drop-off time. My normal 10-minute drive into McCamey was 25 minutes. I waited at the light to change 4 times. Now imagine if I had to go on to Shadow Ridge from there, which is another 12 to 15 minutes, depending. And the next intersection will be the McCamey Creek and Flower Mound Road, which is a horrible intersection, and it's only going to get worse with the exponentially bad traffic. Currently, my middle schooler gets on the bus at 7:45 and is delivered to McCamey Middle School at 8:20 to 25. The new maps that are listed today are flawed. They don't even list our bus stop. 2 kids get on our bus stop, so they're not even showing it, so it's not a correct map. The new map shows still a 39-minute bus ride. It's not acceptable to me that my child will then be on the bus, if she were to come home on the bus at 5 or later, for 9.5 hours a day away from home. To me as a parent and to you as a school board, that should be unacceptable. Let me share that on February 1st, I drove to Bluebonnet Elementary at 7:15, and it took me approximately 15 minutes. 20 minutes, I'm sorry. The next week I went to the same place, and it took me over 30. The other statement that was made at the workshop was that those of us who are getting bused are used to it. Ladies and gentlemen, we bought our house 9 years ago thinking and believing that a middle school would be built next to McCamey. That is why we were happy to live where we lived, and we're happy to be rezoned. I ask you to please consider the map that was turned into you at the February 27th meeting, as that does not split any elementary schools and keeps us in close proximity to our homes. Thank you.
Tim Wood.
My name is Tim Wood, and I live on Sarah Springs Trail in Imola Estates. I currently have a 6th and a 7th grader attending McCamey. I'm here today to ask you to vote no on the most recent proposed rezoning map for many reasons. First, unlike other neighborhoods affected by the previously proposed options, I feel that our neighborhoods were not given adequate time to voice our opinions to the most recent changes. Prior to March 27th, there were only 2 maps developed by the Boundary Committee that I had seen, neither of which affected our neighborhood. These previous maps were presented to us a long time ago with ample time to consider the immediate and long-term effects. A 3rd map was developed by this board on February 27th, which also did not affect our neighborhoods. Finally, out of the dark, this 4th map appears in which everything changed. Not only was it totally different than anything that had previously been presented, but we only had 10 days to voice our concerns and opinions. Though we may not have the number of rooftops that other neighborhoods have, we deserve the right to be given the same opportunity. Is it truly fair to disenfranchise the parents and students by this action? Second, our neighborhood school children already have the longest bus rides. This is understandable for where we live. However, I cannot understand how rezoning our children to a school much farther in distance is fair to them or their parents. Our children barely have enough time now to get home and be off to the next activity, whether it be for school or something else. Are they to sacrifice what precious little time they currently have, or due to this increase in time, forgo participating at all? Third, many of us have already spoken with regards to the amount of the extra time our children will be on a bus each and every day. But what about the parents? Due to choir, band, doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, athletics, or after-school activities, or just a forgotten lunch or homework, make multiple trips each and every week to and from school. Ask any parent involved in these or other activities if they have a spare moment in their day for this extra distance. Fourth, there has been talk of grandfathering certain, if not all, current McCamey school children. However, there would be no bus service provided, again adding time to our already hectic days transporting our children to and from school. Also, I would be selfish if I were to say this is acceptable to me. My children will not be affected. My children will be out of McCamey soon. But what about the next set of parents that moves into the neighborhood? When would they get a chance to voice their opinions? When would their voices be heard? I'm here today not only for my family and my neighbors' behalf, but for those who will be affected in the future due to the erroneous action this board is about to take. Please vote no on the current proposed map and adopt a map similar to the February 27th map. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. The next name I have is Gina Toich, Toich. And the person after that is Melanie Lamb.
Good evening. My name is Gina Toich. I live on Bolo Lane at the south end of High Road. That's service or study area 174. 9th closest middle school to my house, 6th closest in the district, the farthest middle school in the feeder pattern, Shadow Ridge. It's a fine school. It's just 10 miles from my house. How is a plan where people in my neighborhood or any neighborhood within the district drive nearly 10 miles each way to school good for anyone? A bus, some say, you'll get a bus. That same bus will need to pick up students and drive them on an over 10-mile-long bus route, navigating 15 stoplights on 1171 and 2499. It's an over 8 miles of that route will be spent on 1171 and 2499, extremely busy highways. Construction will begin soon on 1171. Need I say more? I believe in this district. I worked as a teacher here, and I've been a homeowner in the district for over a decade. In fact, I voted for many of you. I put my trust in you that you would make the best decision for the students in this district. I have heard some of you say that this plan affects the fewest number of people. You're probably right. Some of you talked about the long distances. I have also heard many of you say that you don't want kids to be on buses longer than is necessary. I know the new route has cut off 8 stops for my proposed neighborhood. The new proposed route for my neighborhood has eliminated 8 stops, which is how you're probably arriving at the 40 minutes of still bus commute each day. More than one of you also said that you do not want to split up an additional elementary school. Listen to your words. Think about them. And then, if you still feel that rezoning must occur, I ask you to adopt the map created at the February 27th workshop. This map did ask a few neighborhoods to make concessions. The map you agreed to on February 27th did not split an additional elementary school, and it would not require students from the far western edge of Flower Mound to travel to the eastern edge for middle school. Consider that the March 28th map places lakeside development and the potential western growth at Shadow Ridge, the campus with the smallest capacity. These unknowns make me leery that the March 28th map can be a great long-term solution. I don't have a school within reasonable walking proximity, but I would also like to think that proximity means the school where my neighborhood kids attend is nearer than 10 miles away. School board, please consider a map similar to the February 27th rezoning map. Thank you.
Melanie Lamb, and then I have Tammy Lilly.
Y'all doing? Melanie Lamb, 5109 Prince Edward Court. First, I want to thank the board for your invaluable service as a volunteer to our communities and our children. Rezoning is a terrible undertaking and has touched each one of you at some point in time during your service and in your personal lives. I especially want to thank the Boundary Committee members tonight. They spent so much time away from their families and worked diligently to arrive at a solution, although one does not exist without negatively impacting many others. The Boundary Committee all shared their creative ideas only to be dismissed by this administration time and time again. Tonight, I ask that the board postpone this rezone process until a later time. Though rezoning children to Forestwood may fill up a building, most likely will not reinstate much needed specials next school year. It is too late to prepare the curriculum and too late to hire or shift teachers. Our children are young people whose emotional and educational needs must be met first and foremost before the district worries about a building gone vacant from previous poor decisions. Though the overcrowding at McCamey is a valid concern, it can wait another year until the board can think through the rezone more clearly. The parents and the board have been yanked in different directions due to bad numbers supplied by the administration and valid factors that have been presented by concerned parents. The rug has been pulled from underneath families who had no idea that they were going to be dragged into the rezone until the last minute, then for the boundary maps to change yet again. I want to thank Tricia Sheffield and Brenda Latham for working so hard to obtain the correct total building capacity numbers and trying to respond to all the parents. Brenda, people are saying that you wouldn't do this if you were not up for re-election, but I know differently. You are honest, sometimes brutally, and I have worked just and would have just worked as hard as you have up through this process. I would also like to thank Julie Foudy for speaking up at the last board work session to question Map 6. It was obvious that you were confused by the latest map that was presented and asked that your fellow board members revisit the map from the February 27th work session. Thank you, Mike McDaniel, for your push for proximity so that the neighborhoods whose children can walk and bike to Old Settlers and McCamey can continue to do so. But this latest map that you are to vote on is far from proximity when you bus children from the far western corner of Flower Mound to the most southeastern end of the Flower Mound High School feeder pattern. Why weren't neighborhoods that are much closer to Shadow Ridge and receive bus service to McCamey today never considered throughout the rezone process? Carol, thank you for telling the truth at the February 4th Town Council meeting. The Town Council invited you to the meeting so that you could say that the council had no say in the zoning process. However, we all know from the August 12th, 2012 public email exchange.
As much as you're talking, thanking me,
not
but
true.
your 3 minutes is up.
Okay.
But thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Tammy Lilly.
I hate to follow Melanie Lamb. Hello, my name is Tammy Lilly, and I live south of Wichita Trail in the Emerald Bay neighborhood. I have 2 children currently attending Liberty Elementary. I would like to thank you for keeping Liberty together at the elementary level. I ask you to keep Liberty together going into McCamey Middle School as well. We do not want a split school. I pray for my elected officials at the national level that they will follow a mantra attributed to Hippocrates to first do no harm. I have been praying this for you this week as you make this very important decision. For me, when considering policy changes such as a new attendance zone map, this means that you ask yourself important questions such as, what are our most important objectives? How can we accomplish these objectives while subjecting students to the least amount of hardship? If one of the goals in removing students from McCamey is to ease the current overpopulation at McCamey, please keep in mind that within 2 years, the overpopulation problem will resolve itself. On page 9, the School District Strategies Demographic Report of 2011 states that the biggest net declines in enrollment are expected at McCamey, Lamar, Durham, Downing, and Briar Hill. Splitting Liberty Elementary and adding significant bus time to Shadow Ridge for areas that Durham Bus Services has already said have no direct route to Shadow Ridge is solving the temporary problem of overcrowding at McCamey and creating a larger long-term problem for Liberty students and parents. I would also like to speak against one of the modifications presented at the March 28th board workshop, which takes only the the area south of Wichita Trail and sends them to Shadow Ridge. Only 16 kids are expected to enter McCamey next year from the south of Wichita area. With current 6th and 7th grade students grandfathered into McCamey, that would mean the school district would be running a bus through our neighborhoods to pick up 16 6th graders. Not only is that a negligible number of kids that will not make a difference in the overpopulation problem, it is a cruel way to split an elementary school. While 89% of their classmates at Liberty would attend McCamey, 11% would have to pass McCamey on their way to Shadow Ridge. If rezoning must occur, which I think there are other opportunities to solve some of these problems without rezoning so many children, but if it does have to occur, I ask you to adopt the map created at the February 27th workshop. While this map asked a couple of neighborhoods to make concessions, the affected students would be able to join their classmates at Shadow Ridge. Those students who want to be able to walk to McCamey could be grandfathered. Then they could walk to McCamey and would not experience the same transportation burdens as those who have their busing privileges removed. The map you agreed to on February 27th, while not perfect, did not split an additional elementary school, and it would not require students to be on a bus to Shadow Ridge for an unacceptable length of time. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Christine Roundtree. And after Christine is Rob Johnson.
I'm back. Good evening. I'm here to address you one last time. I agree with Karen Small, who spoke earlier. It is clear that you fully intend to rezone Garden Ridge from Shadow Ridge to Forestwood, and although I do not agree with it, I've come to terms with that's how it's going to be. But I do respectfully ask for you, please, please go on record tonight and amend the FDB local to include all current 6th graders and their siblings to be grandfathered along with the 7th graders. These children have already registered for their classes for next year. They are part of Shadow Ridge, and Shadow Ridge is part of them. It would make things right, especially in regards to the fact that electives are not equitably offered at Forestwood. So on behalf of my children, my students, and my former students, please go on record tonight and vote to generously grandfather all current 6th and 7th graders and their siblings. Thank you.
Thank you. Rob Johnson. And after Rob Johnson is Elizabeth With. Johnson?
Yes. Can you hear me fine? All right. My name is Robert Johnson. I live at 4512 Cassandra. I have 3 little girls at Liberty Elementary. They're all here tonight. Back in the back. They're in 5th, 4th, and 2nd grade. That's right, 3 little girls in 5th, 4th, and 2nd grade. And I'm here to talk to you guys tonight about rezoning. Thank you for the privilege to come here and speak before you tonight. It's been a year and a half since I first set foot in this room when I had the privilege to join a strategic design initiative at the encouragement of my lovely wife, who's also here tonight. She has a master's in education, and she's really enthusiastic about education, and up to that point, I wasn't. I had a great time with strategic design. I learned a lot. I hope I was a little bit helpful, contributed to the community. I was on Miss Brown's team until we were split in half, and I want the same thing tonight that I wanted then, which is an LISD that's better for everyone, better for my kids, better for all the kids, for all the parents that are here tonight. And I think that's the hard part for you guys is to some extent everybody here is right. I would agree with the folks from, and I believe it was Morningside, which honestly I've never heard of. But to have to lose a science teacher when their kids are so enthusiastic about science and at the same time have the trade-off to taking on iPads, I think the challenge for you guys is that I don't know that this is the best way to solve your problems. I'd like to think there's a better way. With strategic design, we harness the initiative of faculty and administrators and parents and teachers, and we came up with great stuff. And when I look around and I see all these people and all the thousands, if not tens or hundreds of thousands of man hours and time spent fighting rezoning, if we had put all that energy to the effort of trying to find better ways to solve for the science teacher at Morningside, where I did some math computations for the folks at McCamey and found out that if we moved a math teacher from McCamey to Forestwood, we'd actually reduce the average number of students per class in both middle schools. It's funky math. We asked the kids that were in here earlier with the math. They're the guys that understand how that works. So I'm asking you tonight to vote no to the rezoning plan that you have in front of you. I'm asking you to vote no to splitting Liberty. I'm asking you to vote yes to something positive, which is a better way to solve the problems for the district and make this district an example for the entire state of Texas. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Elizabeth Witt, and then after Elizabeth is Matt Telepak.
Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. My name is Elizabeth With, and I live in Long Meadow Drive in Chimney Rock. I live in the farthest northwest corner of Flower Mound. So our kids who are in McCamey Middle School and in Liberty Elementary now, a fifth grader, are bused the longest as anybody that can be. I agree with all of the comments that were made tonight. I don't want to rehash them. I just want to reiterate to you that spending a full workday over 8 hours on a school bus is not truly what I think we want for our children. I don't think it's what Flower Mound wants to be known for in a school district either. I've served on a school board myself. I know how thankless this job can be. I've sat in your position and made difficult decisions, and I know this one isn't going to be an easy one. However, it seems very difficult for me to believe that the decision or this rezoning proposition now is the best one. It hasn't been vetted. We haven't been given the opportunity to have dialogue. We're able to speak tonight, but there's been no dialogue about the rezoning and the structure. It seems to all of us as if the communities that are farthest west and bearing the greatest burden, at least from a distance perspective, are being dumped on even more. Appreciate your time, and I hope you make the right decision for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Matt, and after Matt is Carrie Erdman.
Good evening. My name is Matt Telepak. I'm the father of 6 children. I'm a special educator administrator for the Texas Can Academies. So I thank you and appreciate all you do for education as an educator. I live at 1936 Canvasback. It's a corner of Garden Ridge and Flower Mound Road. I have 2 sons currently going to Garden Ridge. One is about to go into the middle school. Right now, my sons walk to Garden Ridge, and the bus that one of my sons would go to Shadow Ridge would be coming right outside my door, about 100 feet from my doorway. Now my son looks like he's going to go to Forestwood. And that's 1.8 miles away, and I know that he'll be probably walking home in the heat. So for me, I would much rather have them go to Shadow Ridge. So please keep the schools the way they are. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Carrie Erdman, and then after Carrie is Angie Cox.
Hi, my name's Carrie Erdman, and I may be rehashing some things, but I don't do good public speaking, so I'm going to read what I wrote. My name is Carrie Erdman, and I live south of Wichita Trail in the peninsula at Twin Coves. And this whole process has been a complete roller coaster ride from the beginning, especially for us residents living south of Wichita Trail. Safe one week because the length of the bus ride, and rezone the next for reasons I have yet to hear. My feelings is that the board may vote on a map without adequate information regarding bus time, and I know that that may have been addressed today from the website, but we already have been provided you with the information that our students already exceed the 30-minute goal of Durham bus services to and from McCamey. I would like to again reiterate what Bob Morris from Durham Bus Services said about the route from south of Wichita Trail to Shadow Ridge, that the timing and distance on this route would likely be impacted primarily because there are no direct paths from the area to and from the school. Decisions are being made without all of the needed information. What is the actual number of enrolled students at Liberty that will attend Shadow Ridge? Although it looks like a large area on the map, you are in fact splitting our campus very disproportionately. It is cruel to split a campus so disproportionately by making the minority attend a school that will average 8 to 10 miles away. Please reconsider what you are doing to our community. Please gather all of the appropriate information before making a drastic decision that affects so many people's lives. Another concern that I have is why are we splitting more campuses? I was under the impression that that was one of the instructions given to the Boundary Committee, not to split campuses. But then again, I'm still not sure what the purpose of the Boundary Committee was. One more point I would like to make, and maybe the most important, is if it's truly about reducing the numbers at McCamey, There are 16 fifth graders living south of Wichita Trail, and I know Tammy Lilly said that too. That's hardly enough to make an impact at McCamey. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Angie Cox, and then after Angie is Amy Head.
Thank you, school board, staff, parents, everybody here tonight. I'm Angie Cox. I live at 7616 Emerson Lane. I've been a 21-year resident, and I have 4 kids in the district, 1 at Liberty, 1 at McCamey, and 2 at Flower Mound High School. Many of my points have been made tonight, as people have said, talking about the long bus rides, so you can see where I live, the road construction, the numerous hours, the kids spending 8 hours in the classroom, and then you're expecting them to get on a bus and ride another hour back home. It just doesn't logically make sense. But as I've been sitting here an hour and a half, I thought, you know, what else could I say? And I've been staring at the sign up there, LISD, committed to excellence. And that just really hit home for me, because as you are elected officials, you're committed to excellence. You're committed to excellence by hiring the best teachers in our district to teach our kids. You're committed to excellence by hiring and working the strategic plan to make sure our kids are getting a better education and getting the best education. I mean, we saw it tonight by the kids that were up here. So I'm asking you to be committed to our kids and make logical decisions that make sense for them, getting them at home on time to help them with their grades and everything else. So be logical and be committed to the district. Thank you.
Angie. Amy Head, and after Amy is Carol Rude.
Hello, my name is Amy Head, and I'm a resident of Lake Forest Estates, also known as the College Streets, has been talked about many times in the meetings. I personally want to thank Brenda for responding to emails and taking a lot of heat on Facebook. We appreciate her responding as well as she has. I want to thank the board for allowing us to speak tonight. I'm a mother of 4 kids, 2 that are currently enrolled at Old Settlers Elementary, a 2nd grader and a 1st grader. And tomorrow I'll be going in and registering my 3rd in kindergarten. And within 3 years after that, I will be enrolling my 4th in kindergartens and hopefully as a star at Old Settlers. And at that time, my oldest will be attending middle school. On the March 28th workshop, you finally placed us back into Old Settlers and McCamey. At one time, we were going to Donald, and then we were going to Forestwood. Now we're going to Shadow Ridge. It has been a roller coaster of a ride, and I just want to thank you for considering proximity. From my front door to the front door of Old Settlers is 0.4 miles. My kids walk, ride their scooters every day and enjoy that activity. I do not recommend taking on the map from previous on the 28th of February, which I know is what a lot of people are here talking about. But going through all the meetings and to all the workshops, everybody's neighborhood has been affected at one point in time or another. But I do agree that putting kids on a bus for an hour a day is also not appropriate. They need to be at home with their families. So I stand up here struggling because I want my children to go to their school that they are in walking distance to. Because when my oldest is going to be in middle school, at the current board, at the previous map, I will be in a walking distance to a middle school, but my son won't be attending it. He would be going to Old Shadow Ridge if you accept the previous map. Like I said, I am tied to sit here, but I do think we need to stop what we're doing, rethink what we're doing, and come up with a better plan. I know not everybody's going to be happy with final results, but we can do our best that we can in helping our citizens of Flower Mound, and let us be involved and take the time to listen, which you guys have, and I want to continue that. But I do recommend, too, is that if our city is growing with all the developments that we keep hearing about, we are going to need another middle school, and that 2008 bond needs to be used for another middle school in the West to help those families out so their families will not be on the buses for an hour a day. Please consider this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Carol? And after Carol, Brian Roundtree.
I'm going to try to do this and not be as nervous as I was last time. Okay. Once again, I stand before you. My daughter attended Wellington Elementary. She was a Wildcat and is now in McCamey. I will tell you, I've heard about elementary schools being split out and keeping them together. Currently, our neighborhood is being split from Wellington and rezoned to Old Settlers, and then rezoned to Shadow Ridge. So none of the kids in this area are going to be going and attending this current schools that they're at. Our neighborhood is just south of McCamey Creek and west of Simmons. We are right at 2 miles from McCamey. My daughter, I saw the new bus schedule tonight before I came. It states that her ride is approximately 20 minutes. I can tell you for a fact that is not correct. She calls me every day when she gets home, and she called me at 4:31 this afternoon. That is a 30-minute ride. What's it going to do to Shadow Ridge? It's going to add 10 or 15 more minutes to my child getting to and from school, and we live close. I've heard people say that, you know, my kid can walk to school. You're right, my kid can't, because it's not a safe walking area. We don't have sidewalks on Simmons. We don't have sidewalks in our neighborhood. We are bused because of the safety. And I appreciate that. My child loves riding the bus, not an issue. I will tell you, and she wouldn't be able to get to all of her sporting events without the buses, or to field trips without the buses. I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem with the time frame of her being on it. McCamey is my neighborhood school. Just because she can't walk or ride her bike doesn't mean it's not. And I will tell you, when we moved out here 18 plus years ago, I didn't have a child. McCamey wasn't existing. Old Settlers didn't, well, I think Old Settlers may have. Wellington didn't exist. None of those schools did. Those are my neighborhood schools. As I stood here and watched Lamar archery team stand up here tonight, I thought of my daughter. She is on the McCamey archery team. She went to state with those kids. That is not available at Shadow Ridge or Forestwood. She would have to give up something she loves to do. Rezoning all the bus riders further away just simply does not make sense. If this is passed tonight, I would strongly recommend that this not go into effect until the school year of 2014 and 15. Give it a year. These children have already submitted their courses for next year, and some of those courses that are offered at McCamey are not offered at the other 2 middle schools. The children deserve to know that what they requested will be the courses that they receive next year. If these children are moved for this next year, they will have to resubmit their courses and possibly not receive the requested classes they chose due to the fact that their choices were made after the original deadline. Please reconsider this rezoning, and if not, please wait to implement it until the following year. My daughter even had to submit an application for a class.
That was
Oh,
just 3
sorry.
minutes. It's
Thank
okay.
you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Brian Roundtree, and then Christina Milligan.
Good evening, everyone. I'm pleased to be standing before you again. I'm going to go a little bit easier on you this time than I was last time, I promise. However, not totally easy, as you can expect. You are the Board of Trustees, and some of these decisions are putting you in danger of losing that trust, at least with me and a great many people in this community. I know at least a couple of you up here tonight have been directly involved with discussions with the town of Flower Mound. Smart growth and lakeside development do have direct impact on the impetus for this rezoning. Many people are wondering why we have to do this now. Well, look towards lakeside and smart growth, and you'll know why there's a push to get this done now. I asked several times while I was serving on the boundary committee whether busing would be considered for grandfathered GRE students, and was told several times by at least 2 people up on this stage that all options were on the table. Yet at the very last meeting, when I asked again, as I saw that GRE was slipping away and would be rezoned to Forestwood, I was told, well, we can't set new precedents by busing grandfathered kids. We just can't afford that. And yet, Dr. Waddell specifically told me in a private conversation that the cost of busing was negligible, and we shouldn't consider that when we're drawing our maps. So there is some issue of information there that wasn't correctly passed back and forth. We in GRE already know that we have lost this battle and that our children will be rezoned against our will. And so tonight I implore you to vote no on the latest proposal and at least let Liberty stay unified going to the same middle school. Don't make two short-sighted decisions when one will do. Thank you.
So I have, thank you, sir. Christina Milligan, and then the next name after Christina is Ann Carnes.
Good evening. I'm Christina Milligan. And I'm Seville Condis. We're both from the Gifted and Talented Parent Support Group of Castle Hills and the greater Lewisville area. We're affiliated with the Texas Association for the Gifted and Talented. And for any parent out here tonight, if you'd like to contact us, please visit www.txgifted.org. We have some awesome plans to go into effect next year. We have lots of good programming, and we'd love for you to join us. Our membership has doubled over the six-month period that we've been in existence, and if I could, I'd like to ask those of you in the audience tonight who are parents of gifted and talented students to please rise so we can see who you are. Anybody out there tonight? That's awesome. There's plenty. That's really great. And I just want you to say we support and commend your efforts, and we hope you can join us at some future event. We have a meeting April 24th at Escapade Coffee Shop at 2540 King Arthur in Castle Hills Village Shopping Center. And you guys are very critical to the success of your students, and I know that what you do will help spiral your children to success.
In addition to networking and providing support for local GT families, our group is interested in learning more about our own district's program. To that end, we'd like to bring back an event that was last held around 3 years ago, a brown bag luncheon with the district's GT staff so that they can share with us what's happening with our program. This was a highly praised event when it was last held and is something that many parents have asked about. We plan on working with the GT department to get this scheduled towards the beginning of the next school year. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'ams. So Ann Carnes, and then Dana O'Neill.
My name is Ann Carnes. I live at 6518 Burning Tree Drive on the west end of town. I have a child that's a sophomore in high school and a junior. And I just agree with a lot of the things that I've said about the transportation tonight. My kids do still take the bus. I don't trust them behind the wheel yet, so I'd like them to still stay on the bus. And I grew up in the Air Force. I move schools all the time. I know what that's like. The socialization of kids moving from schools is as scary as speaking to all of you up here. But I moved my kids at 8 and 9 overseas to come here, and they've made some of the best friends that they'll probably ever have. So new is not always bad, but I just think it's all happening too fast and it's not being thought out. And it just needs more concentration and more time. Speaking to a friend overseas this weekend, she had a conversation with a woman moving to Texas. Knowing me, she's like, oh, I've got a friend in Texas. She's in Flower Mound. The lady said, oh, we considered Flower Mound, but their school system seems to be in a mess, and they're moving to Plano. So this is getting out, and it's not just here that people are watching and listening to the decisions that are being made. So you could say no for now, and maybe watch the BBC and listen to everybody and then take it all in and give it some time. We'd all appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Dana O'Neill. And last but not least, Maureen Martin is in the batting cage.
Good evening. How is everybody?
Just fine.
That I have a sense of humor, okay? It's been a long month after month after month for me. I'm missing 2 games tonight, and I've spent a lot of time deliberating over maps, just as you have. I'd like for you all tonight to think about some of the work that the Boundary Committee has done. Some of that work, we sat behind closed doors and debated, just as you sat in front of us and debated. We didn't take certain areas into certain schools for a reason, and proximity, frankly, became a dirty word, right? Proximity to everybody is relative. If you're on a bus, it's relative for the amount of time that your child rides. If you're walking distance, it's relative because you want those privileges. So it becomes a puzzle that you begin to put together, and you don't really know where the pieces fall. And one day, it might be in one direction, and the other day you look back and say, that was completely wrong. Tonight I want to speak as a Boundary Committee parent and as a parent. The first thing that I want you to think about is grandfathering. We've talked a lot about grandfathering at the middle school level, and I want you to think about it at the elementary school level. We have some small pockets of neighborhoods currently that may be affected at the elementary school level, and I think that allowing students beyond just our 5th graders to stay put in Wellington or Liberty or wherever it may be should be considered. The second thing is, obviously, I'm in support of my Liberty parents and their proximity to their middle school at this time. I'm also in support of keeping that campus together. After going through the workshop process with you and really going back and reevaluating some of the data, I felt like it was just an inaccurate decision based on it being too quick. We don't even know what the 3rd through 5th grade numbers would be. I know that we're diminishing in numbers greatly. And so without that information, I think either we should go back and reevaluate previous maps or take our time on this. The map that you guys did introduce previously at one of your workshops solved a lot of the problems that we were asked to solve as a Boundary Committee. We were asked to readjust populations at our campuses, and by moving Garden Ridge, we are able to do that. By taking certain students from Old Settlers to join their classmates into Shadow Ridge, we are taking some students out of the McCamey feeder pattern. And with grandfathering, we won't see the effects right away, but with the trickle down and the decrease in population, McCamey should see relief in 2 to 3 years. I ask that you go back, look at some of the work that you've put forth, look at some of the work that I've put forth, and come to a decision tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. And Maureen Martin. And just to double check, has Kendall Pretzer come back into the room? Oh. Okay, well, we have her card, and just as said, she's more or less said what she wants on her card, so, right. Thank you, ma'am.
Hi, good evening. My name is Maureen Martin, and I live on Clearpoint Drive in Wichita Chase, Wellington. My husband Jeff and I are working executives, and we have triplets at Liberty Elementary in 4th grade. So yes, Arabella, Brandon, and Sullivan have contributed to the numbers. My neighborhood is not affected, nor has it ever been affected. So you're probably saying to yourself, why am I here, and certainly why do I have the privilege of being the last speaker tonight? And the reason that I'm here is because I've been actively engaged since the very beginning of this process. Because no matter what happens, it affects our children. And I have spent over 2 decades serving the advocacy of children. So I want to look at it from that perspective. When the last 328 LASD board meeting, when that map came out as it related to the middle schools, I just felt that I had to come and talk, even though I'm not personally affected. I go all the way back to January 17th when I had the privilege to be invited to a small group parent leader meeting at Liberty Elementary with Dr. Rogers, Tommy, and Lizzie. And the critical things that I got from you, Dr. Rogers, was that we were going to have community involvement. You went into great lengths about the Boundary Committee and all the analysis, all the tools, all the things we were going to do. You then talked to the fact that there were going to be 2 public forums, and as Tommy had shared, in the past there had only been 1, and that's after the LASD brought it forth. The other thing was going to be transparency. There were critical success goals that you said to us that day. One is we are not going to split elementary between 2 middle schools, first and foremost. Second, was that we were going to do proximity. And as it's been said, proximity is relative to the person. But I think we all can agree, after all the testament today, that an hour on a bus is not proximity for a child. Third was safety of children. First, it started with overcrowding and what did that mean to our kids. The other was the bus time, health of our children. When that proposal came out, it really immediately conflicted to everything that had been a part of the process. I ask you, if in fact a decision has to be made, I implore you to go back to the February 27th proposed map. There have been lots of reasons given tonight why that would be at least a meeting of the least impact for our children. You've heard lots of great things from parents. We're passionate. One of the things we talked about was the fact every one of our schools are exemplary. Well, the reason they're exemplary is because of LISD excellence, because of our teachers, our faculty, and because of the involvement of our parents. Looking at the map on 328, the involvement of parents will not be available to help support our faculty with our children and put them in the best position. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, if there's no issue, we're going to take a 5-minute break. We don't want you to leave. We just need to. I appreciate this. You guys let us have that little break. Okay, moving on. And I really would like to thank everybody who got up and spoke to us. I know how hard that can be. I think that's one of the biggest fears, is even more than death, is public speaking. So, which I still get that. So, we're going to be moving on to the informational items. LISD strategic design, Dr. Haynes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. We have a couple of presentations tonight regarding strategic design implementation. Ms. Permetti is here tonight to give you a brief summary of the work to date for our Partnership Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Dr. Haynes. Would the presentation come up on the slide? And in the meantime, I would like to introduce Ryan Hemingway. He is a Colony High School student. He is a member of our Partnership Advisory Committee, and he has graciously volunteered to present our PowerPoint on behalf of the Partnership Committee. We met on April 2nd, and we went over our framework that we developed as well as our evaluation of matrix. So he's going to give us an overview of the presentation, and I guess we'll wait for the PowerPoint to power up, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Hemingway.
All right. I'd just like to introduce myself once again. My name is Ryan Hemingway. I am a senior at TCHS. I also go to the Career Center East, and I have over 9 credits in high school of Career Center classes, or career and tech-oriented classes. Many of those include pharmacy tech and graphic design. I was graciously part of the Partnership Advisory Committee, where we developed a framework for partnerships between the community, businesses, the school district, and many other large members of the community to get together. This is part of strategic design goal number 5, which its goal is to involve our community and staff to use our strengths and resources to better each other, not just the school district. Strategic design outcome number 5.3 was also one of our goals, and this finally came to our framework for the Partnership Advisory Committee program. We had a total of 35 members on our team, and I was one of 7 students on the committee. We all represented all the different high schools in LASD. We followed a strategic design process and collaborated and created collaborated, created, designed, and developed this awesome framework for creating partnerships between the community and LASD. It was very awesome to have different community members as from pharmaceutical companies, from the school board, and from administrative staff in the school district. So it was really nice to have collaboration and see all the different points of how partnerships can be created. Those are all of the awesome people that were on our Partnership Advisory Committee. Might recognize a few from our board. And we had a total of 6 meetings. One was very recent. And we had a total of 700 hours for put together into this project to create our Partnership Advisory Plan. This is our framework, which all of you should have a copy of. And our framework includes multiple things that we'd like to address and make sure it happen in the framework. And this is our implementation. It includes the rubric for evaluating the partnerships and making sure that they're working as well as we would like, and hopefully building upon previous ones that are in the school district. And this is just showing our evaluation and metrics. This, again, is showing how we evaluate how our partnerships are working today and making sure that future ones will grow upon it, and we'll have awesome partnerships. LASD is one of the first in the United States to create an organic business partnership program. There are other school districts that have partnership committees and partnership plans, but none of them have been created personalized for the school district, and it's very cool to have one perfect for our school district and make sure it really meets all the needs that we have. All right, thank you very much.
One other item, as far as our strategic design initiative, is our Inside program. And to bring you up to date, that last month we had a principal for the morning part of our program where everybody who wanted to participate got to select the campus they wanted to meet with that principal. The goal is for them to meet with a principal that their student doesn't currently reside at that campus. So we wanted them to get exposure to other schools. And as part of that process, the principals got to visit with them about quality instruction, of what they're doing to implement strategic design, but as well as the role of serving as an instructional leader for their campus and their school community. So that is what we did last month. This month, they're going to have a mock learning leaders meeting. So we're going to go through the process of what our administrators do to dialogue about strategic design and moving our district forward. So they're going to go through a series of what we do. So that's for the month of April.
Board, at this time, I'd like to turn the rest of the presentation over to Dr. Penny Riddell and her staff.
Madam President, Board of Trustees, Dr. Riddell, during these past few weeks, we have been working with project or problem-based learning. This is very much in line with our strategic design, and it enables our teachers to design real-world problems or projects that meet the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, that also engage our students very deeply in learning and applying 21st century skills. We are going to deepen our district knowledge in the next few months. We will be doing some spring and summer professional learning with the Buck Institute. We're looking forward to reporting out to you later on that. Another thing that we've been doing that is very exciting and is really taking us to a new, this has to be done for us to really take strategic design where we want it to go, is to look at our elementary report card and look at the time of that we have between grading periods. And so we're going to have a presentation by Rhonda Godby, who is our West Zone leader, and Lori Rapp, who's our Executive Director for Learning, Design, and Support.
Good afternoon. In order for us to accomplish our goals for strategic design, the Learning and Teaching Department, along with operations, convenes regularly with our principals, our assistant principals, our strategic design coaches, and our teachers to chart our course for how we're going to meet the goals of the strategic design.
We are very excited to be with you here tonight as we represent the work of many teachers, principals, and assistant principals. And we are really looking at, because of the strategic design, how do our district grading and assessment practices align with the core mission, vision, beliefs, and goals. And so we're excited to share that work with you this evening.
There were 9 committees consisting of 64 members, teachers and administrators and design coaches, who worked to talk about what we needed to do in regards to assessment and grading that would help us move forward with strategic design. This group of people decided we needed to concentrate on goals 1 and 6 if we were to move forward with how we currently look at assessment in regards to how we should be looking at assessment. And this group believed that before LISD can move forward with strategic design, they must confront and eliminate assessment and instructional practices that discourage risk-taking. That was first and foremost. They also decided, or we also decided, that we had to look at the length of our grading period and how that might affect the kinds of things we're being able to do in our classroom. And lastly, we had to really look at what we were providing for parents and students as far as feedback before we could really implement a uniform and consistent assessment practice that would make sense in regards to strategic design. So these are the kinds of things we were discussing early on in this group to come up with these 3 important tasks. So our top 2 priorities that came out of this were looking at the possibility of a 9-week grading period from 8th grade down, similar to what we already do in our high schools. And the second was the standards-based report card for 1st grade, as Dr. Riddell alluded to earlier. I'm going to be talking about the 9-week grading period and possibly moving to and proposing a 9-week grading period for 8th grade and down. As a result of this group of individuals working together, our principals wanted to get, the middle school principals especially, some input from our teachers. So the committee established a survey that went out to all middle school teachers. 214 teachers responded to that about the importance of lengthening the time period that they had for grading. And that would allow for more summative assessments and possibly being able to redo some of those assessments in that time period, which they're currently do under the 6 weeks. This would provide more flexibility for in-depth learning, such as she alluded to earlier, project-based learning, performance tasks, different kinds of performance tasks, as well as being able to evidence their learning through creating and synthesizing information. And as I said earlier, revision and reflection. A lot of times that's the part that gets left out right now because there just isn't enough time for us to go back and allow time to redo. Even as an ex-English teacher, that was the part I really had to focus on allowing time for because I felt like students learned more from redoing their mistakes or learning from their mistakes than they did from doing it the first time. And the 9-week grading period would allow for more of that. As we look at teacher comments, we're going to be looking at some of those here in just a moment. Again, this is a result of a lot of work. Earlier this year, we met at the Hilton Garden Inn with George Thompson from the Selecti Center. And teacher leaders, central office personnel, and principals, and some of you were there to talk about quite a lot of things and how we were going to accomplish some of this strategic design. One of the things that was mentioned at quite a lot of the tables was the possibility of going to 9 weeks. I think that's kind of where the idea emanated from, was some discussion at those tables that day. And since then, a lot of work has gone into evaluating and deciding whether that really is a good idea or not. So teacher comments from the survey that we talked about, the 214, are included here for you to look at. Provided for you. I'm not going to read it to you. I know it's been a long evening. But our teachers feel very strongly, and this is elementary and secondary, that this is a positive thing that would allow for these project-based learning examples, as well as being able to do some reflective work and evaluating their work.
At the elementary level, we currently have 4 teams of teachers working from 1st through 5th grade, and at every meeting consistently, one of the things I always ask is, what are the chances of moving to a 9-week reporting period? And so we've captured that comment for you there, that 3-week turnaround within the 6-week reporting period doesn't give the full breadth of time that they would really like to see to have to evaluate their student performance.
So after the Hilton and all of the committee work, we decided we weren't going to stop there. We needed to get some parent input also on how they felt about the possibility of 9 weeks. And it was kind of quick that we had to do this, but open house happened to be the week we were having one of our meetings, and we decided, well, we can survey parents at open house. And we sent out some sky alerts through the system, and we allowed them to vote at the open house, where they were able to ask some questions if they had questions about 9 weeks. As a matter of fact, as soon as the sky alert went out, because I do live in the West Zone, several parents I know actually called me and said, hey, what's going on with the 9 weeks? And they had some questions that they wanted to ask about it, so they were able to do that at those open house meetings. And every zone was represented in this, and this is what we got from rather quick turnaround for you. 90% of the parents who said that's okay. Our kids do need a little more time. And I think if you were to ask most parents, they would say, I really would like my child to be able to redo something and learn from the mistakes that he or she made during that time. So we did want you to know that there was some parent input on this as well. If this is the direction you would like to go, then we would have to make some changes to EIE local. And we would consult TASB on the best wording for that particular, how to move from 6 weeks to 9 weeks. And we've already been in conversations with them already if this is what we choose to do. And that's what we would have to do and bring that back to you later as far as EIE local is concerned. Lori is going to be talking to you about the first grade standards-based report card.
So I'm happy to share with you the work of the first grade teachers, and we have a first grade teacher and a kindergarten teacher here to speak with you very briefly about the power of standards-based report cards for feedback about learning. This is a huge collaborative effort. Rhonda mentioned that we have 9 different committees operating with 64 people represented. There are a variety of committees, and while it's been late into the evening, I wanted anyone associated with any of this committee work to be able to stand up and be recognized. So if you're still here with us, would you stand up and be recognized? Basically, a lot of the conversation among the first grade team of teachers has been that standards-based report cards are consistent with what we currently do at our kindergarten level, and we have a snapshot for you in a couple of slides of that. So the learning curve for parents of first grade students is less because actually it would be consistent with what they currently see in kindergarten. Our current learning curve is moving from what they have in kindergarten to grading on a 100-point scale. Additionally, we have elementary specials classes in our gifted and talented program, which report on a non-numeric basis using a scale for progress. And of the 9 school districts in the North Texas Regional Consortium, 6 of them utilize standard-based report cards at first grade, and some of them even beyond. Additionally, our team of teachers utilized research from Denton, Carrollton Farmers Branch, Round Rock, and Arlington, who have already made some of this transition to a standards-based report card. A standards-based report card is basically a format that is linked to the state standards that are age appropriate for our students. The format more accurately reflects learning as a process, and you're able to mark students according to their development on those learning standards.
Our teacher comments here, our team of teachers has been amazing, and you'll get to hear from one of them tonight. They diligently work very hard to get feedback from their colleagues related to what they think about moving to a standards-based report card. And you can see that they want individualization for students. They want to reflect mastery for students. They want something that looks more like kindergarten, and they want it to be based on the state standards, which are TEKS. We've captured a screenshot for you of what the current kindergarten standards-based report card looks like. It does capture the most important skills that we expect our kindergarten students to learn. They can be marked as developed, still developing, or needing support across the 6 weeks reporting period. At this time, I would like to introduce Ms. Kathy Hodges, a kindergarten teacher at Wellington Elementary who also teaches in our Spanish immersion program, to talk to you very briefly about the success of the kindergarten report card.
I am excited about the first grade teachers going, or possibility of them going to the standards-based report card. Kindergarten, our report card is wonderful. I feel like it addresses all of it addresses everything for the parents to understand. We learn a lot in kindergarten. I mean, a lot. And the report card really it captures a lot of things and gives them, the parents, the best. Plus, we have a great rubric that's sent home every 6 weeks with the parents, so they can understand specifically what we're grading that 6 weeks. I think it'll be a smoother transition for our parents, our kiddos at that age. They'll know that it's okay. It'll show their progress instead of linking it to a number grade. And how did I get a 90%, or how, but I think that's for the little self-esteem. Plus, my first grade teachers at Wellington are thrilled that this is a possibility. Thank you.
As you could see, when we brought the team of first grade teachers together, they started drafting items to see what it would look like in first grade. And so we've captured a screenshot. They've drafted items that are most important in language arts, social studies, science, math. We're very excited about the category for our second language learners, because we know that we have students in our dual language program who are not only becoming bilingual, but biliterate. And we'll be able to give more accurate feedback about their progress as well. And we have a brand new category that we believe would be important for a report card of future-ready 21st century skills. So we're excited about that. And at this time, I'd like Ms. Kendra Wilson from Hicks Elementary, who serves on the team, to share with you about their passion for a first grade standards-based report card.
So much. When Lori first asked me, Kendra, would you be willing to come and talk to the board, I had to hold myself back from just jumping across the table and hugging her neck. And I can honestly say this is my 23rd year in education, and I am so excited about the way we're moving as a district. One of the goals in our strategic design that really stands out to me and it always hits me, it talks about having varied assessments that inform, meaningful assessments that inform and inspire students and educators. And I think, we always learn from our past, and I know we've been doing wonderful things in the district, but one of the things I think that really hits me, we talk about, do we want to inform and inspire our students with our assessments? And one of the hardest things with little ones is I sit down so many times and they run up to me and they go, look, Miss Wilson, I got a 63. Is that good? And then the very next day they might walk up and go, I got an 83. Is that good? Because they don't understand, what does that mean? What is an 83? What is a 63? With the standards-based report card, you're really looking and you're sitting down and you might have, you sit down and we're looking at talking with, conferencing with parents and teachers alike. So there's going to be a lot of conversation. That in itself just so excites me. But we're going to be sitting down with the students and having individual conferences with them. We're going to be sitting down with the parents and sitting down with the student and the parent together and looking at how are we driving your instruction. For example, you might be doing a great job at problem solving, but maybe we're still developing or having a little bit of trouble with patterning or number sense or inferencing. So we can sit down, and it really gives, parents are always asking me, Ms. Wilson, how do I help? I mean, I know they're doing, I got an 83, they have a 93, but I really want to make sure that I'm doing everything I can for my child. And if we sit down with these report cards and we can go over with them, this is where they're excelling, this is where maybe they just need a little bit more development, I'm just so excited about that possibility because it's like sitting there and saying that we are developing individualized education plans for each one of our students. And that, I feel like that's, after looking at our strategic design, that's what we're here for. We are here for these kids, and we're here to inform and inspire them. And again, I keep looking at that word, students and educators and parents, because we're all part of that learning community. So I thank you for consideration, and as you can see, it's a passion of mine. I absolutely love what I'm doing, and I appreciate your time because I think we have the best district in the state of Texas and the United States, but I'm a little prejudiced, so thank you.
If we were to make this move to a standards-based report card at first grade, it would impact EIE local. We would need to revise our language to reflect standards-based promotion as opposed to 100-point scale promotion. And upon approval of further work, we would work with TASB to draft language that would reflect that appropriately. I would like to close with noting that we believe this move supports language that is already in EIE local, which expects districts to work on reducing retentions, ultimately eliminating retentions. We believe, based on the research, that a standards-based report card would work towards ultimately eliminating retention at first grade. I would like to share that we always start with the research phase in any work that we do with teachers, principals, and assistant principals. This work has been no different. And we, of course, in learning and teaching and operations, would be happy to sit with you and talk about the research that we use. I want to say thank you so much for your time and consideration and the distinct pleasure to be here before you this evening.
Madam Chair, members of the board, we would like your consideration to have this as our information item this month in order to expedite the process, bring forward a discussion item so that you may entertain questions to the full group for May with a final action in June, so we will be ready to go for the new school year.
Okay, well said. Thank you very much, Dr. Haynes, Dr. Riddell, and all the hard work from the teachers. Moving on to information item number 2, the budget amendments. Dr. Burnett.
Thank you, Ms. Kyer. A little more mundane item here. We have before you as an information item two budget amendments. Both of them involve moving monies from our food service funds to pay for capital improvements in lieu of using bond funds. One is the bistros that have been installed at the Colony High School, Hebron High School, and Lewisville High School, and that budget amendment is $165,591, and then $73,851 to pay for the replacement freezer and cooler at Heritage Elementary, and those will be brought back to you for action next month.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to discussion items. Monthly financials, bond report, and new construction report, including quarterly investment report. Dr. Burnett.
You have our monthly reports in your packet. We'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Dr. Burnett, I don't really have any questions about the reports. They look great. But since we have this time, can you explain what monies are used for technology and what monies are used for teachers?
If you're meaning the construction and the monies to use to buy the hardware, we had in the 2008 bond election, there were monies set aside for technology, included both devices, hardware, as well as infrastructure. The money that we use to pay our teachers comes from our maintenance and operating fund, which is the portion of our budget that is funded by both state revenues and our maintenance and operation property tax rate of $1.04. which is the piece that has just been ruled unconstitutional by the state, by the judge.
I have one question, and you've probably told us this, and it slipped my mind. How are we deciding the order of the facilities, getting the infrastructure for technology, getting the wireless upgrades?
Well, we have brought to you all of the packages for the, so everything's been done, and we're waiting for this last package for it's on your agenda for tonight, and these schools are the schools that are eligible for E-rate reimbursement, and that's in these will be the last ones. It's all being done concurrently, and they will all be finished by the beginning of school next year.
I was going to ask Dr. Waddell or Carol this question, but since you're talking about bond money, can you talk a little bit about the 2008 bond package and how it was decided or prioritized on what it could be used for, even though you're kind of new like I am. We weren't here back then, but I know you have an understanding of the history.
Well, when I got here not quite 2 years ago, the first thing that I did was go to the voter education materials that the district used and put out in the bond election, and that has become our guidelines and the budget that the bond report that you've been looking at really almost monthly, even before I got here, reflected the budget that was adopted by the board to reflect that information that was in there. I mean, there have been a couple of changes, notably being the rebuild of LHS, which was done through savings that the district realized in other projects.
Ms. Latham, is that what you're looking for? Or?
The point that I was addressing was the question of why we hadn't built a middle school next door to Liberty, and that I think it's an educational opportunity that no money was taken from the idea of having a middle school at the west side next to Liberty and used somewhere else. That's a false accusation. Also in the 2008 bond package, Carol, you're going to have to help me out because you were here. It wasn't specified where the middle schools would be.
That's true.
Okay, so I'm right on that. And we don't have the population at this point in time to build a middle school there when we have another school that is half empty. We can't justify that to the other 50,000 parents throughout the district that also pay into the district. So it's not that bond money was, I need to make it clear that the bond money for a middle school on the west side, number one, wasn't specified in the 2008 bond package. Number two, wasn't taken out of Flower Mound and used somewhere else to cancel that whole project altogether.
The 2008 bond package that passed by, I think it was about 77% or 82%, had a list of 2 middle schools, 3 elementary schools, the money to make Milliken into a middle school. So some people think there's 3 middle schools there, but that was specifically designated to make Milliken into a middle school, which is now DeLay Middle School. There was also money for technology, money to purchase other land, and also for the 2 ninth grade centers, for the 9-10 center, the aquatic center, Marcus's stadium. I think I got everything listed there. Pretty close. The 2 middle schools, I put them in there because we knew that there was going to be growth throughout the district. As a matter of fact, the demographic report we had then, that we had done then, actually, their growth that they estimated that about now we'd be at about 56,000, 58,000, which we're not. But it was because of a lot of people blame it on the economy and such. So the 2 middle schools, they were for the district where we thought they would need them at the time. Some people gauge bond elections by time, some people gauge it by growth. It all depends what school of thought you're from. We do have land next to Liberty for middle school. We also have land for middle school in Highland Village. We have land for a middle school out in the Colony. We have a number of sites because as we see the growth coming, we try and buy the land because unfortunately, we're not given the land. So we have to make sure that we can get the land before it gets to an astronomical price because they're more or less get to hold us over a barrel because we need the land. So that's something that we try and look to the future to see if we can purchase land so that we will have future school sites. We have a site right next to Shadow Ridge. We have 80 acres that we could sell the frontage land because it's $24.99, which is profitable land. But we also have room there to put, with 80 acres, you could put a high school there, you could put a ninth grade center, you could put a number of things. As a matter of fact, for a while they talked about putting the ninth grade center there, but then it changed with a change of thought. But so usually the rule is, and since I've been through a number of these bond elections, unless you specifically designate an area, which they tell you, the lawyers will tell you, don't do that, because you can run into problems later on, because if suddenly a giant 10,000 apartment complex is going to go in and it folds, and you are putting a house, put a middle school there or a high school even, then you run into issues if you designate that specifically. So you try and make it as general as possible, except, well, for instance, the aquatic center, we didn't say where it was going to go. We just said we would get one. We would provide one because we needed another one for the district. So I understand thinking that, and maybe the realtors told you that because it is there and it will be someday, hopefully, a middle school. But in the current bond money, we don't have that designated. We actually have it designated for Griffin Middle School, which you would not want your children to go to because it's falling apart. So that's what they're getting out. They're getting Griffin Middle School is getting that middle school. You good? Okay. Do we have any other questions for Dr. Burnett? Moving on, Dr. Haynes, TASB Policy Update 96, which you said we were not going to have.
I know. You should never make promises you can't keep, especially when you're dealing with bureaucratic organizations. However, the central administration leadership has reviewed the policies. There are no recommended changes. We recommend that you pass as presented to you in your packet.
And that will come forward next month as an action item. Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Haynes regarding TASB Policy Number 96? Seeing none, move on to Dr. Haynes again. Special Education Audit Report. Got handed this?
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair, members of the board, we have concluded our audit of special education, and tonight we have Ms. Jenny Copeland, who is the Vice President for Client Development for Stetson and Associates, who conducted the audit, and she is here to present the findings of the audit to the board. Ms. Copeland.
Through your board meeting so far, and it's a pleasure for I really mean that. It is. I really do mean that, and I say that I work for an education consulting firm, Stetson and Associates. We're based in Houston, Texas. We work internationally and really all over the country in a lot of districts in Texas, a lot of districts throughout the United States, large, small, rich, poor, north, south, east, and west. So it's been a pleasure for us to be part of your evaluation for services for students with disabilities. I will say from the start that I am going to share briefly with you the major findings and recommendations that we made. Oftentimes we are invited to go to districts to conduct such evaluations because there's a big problem. That is not the case in your school district. It is wonderful for us and our whole team that came here as part of this evaluation to be part of an evaluation for services of a district that's committed to quality and excellence. And we saw many wonderful practices, and we're glad to share those with you. So I have given you a report. I think you have it there, and I'm going to go quickly through the slides and the way the organization of the report, and I've actually put page numbers if you want to delve deeper into some of the findings and the evidence of the findings. In conducting a full program evaluation for services for students with disabilities, we did several activities as illustrated on this slide. We did interviews and classroom observation at 23 randomly selected schools in your district. We interviewed your central office staff with a series of questions relative to their perceptions of the services and the quality of services for students with disabilities. We conducted focus groups of elementary principals, secondary principals, elementary teachers, secondary teachers, special ed teachers at the elementary and secondary level, and all stakeholder groups relative to their perceptions of special education services, really asking them two questions. What do you think is working well? What do you think is not working well? We also let out surveys, and we had a nice response of over 1,700 surveys were returned, which is a very nice return, to assess perceptions of your faculty regarding services. And then we did a comparable district review of 9 selected districts that you selected for us to look at relative to budget, staffing, student performance, and any other factors that we could compare using the data that was readily available. So those were the activities. As you can see, it was rather comprehensive. This is not a compliance review. It's really a review of the practices relative to quality of services. So let me share with you the common themes that emerged. And they are stated here for this slide as it illustrated. We looked at a common vision and shared responsibility. This theme emerged from the data that we analyzed from all of those activities. We also looked at a theme that emerged about clear and consistent messaging relative to services for children. We looked at highly effective instruction, again, by our many, many visits to all of the classrooms in your district. Then we looked at staffing and scheduling to support student success, which is another theme. And then the last theme, theme 5, is parental satisfaction for services with students with disabilities. So I want to share with you briefly what the major findings were. And again, those findings are really outlined in your packet, and I have the page number for the details. And then our recommendations for continuous improvement. I'm going to start, though, with theme 5 because we found this quite astounding. And we were very pleased to report this to you. There is a high level of parental satisfaction for the services for students with disabilities in your school district. I will tell you from the numerous, and I say scores of evaluations we've done all over the country, this district has the highest parental satisfaction that we have ever seen. So we wanted to share that with you and put that right up there at front. High level of satisfaction, and the parents were able to respond to us in numerous ways, both verbally through comments and in surveys. The second finding relative to parental satisfaction is there is a high level of parental involvement. Parents are involved at the school level. The schools are actively invite and are welcoming parents as part of the program for services. So we wanted to share with you on page 34 is that outline what those findings are, and then we want to also let you know what we recommend. Here's just an example of some of the questions that we were asked from the surveys that indicate the parent satisfaction. And if you'll notice, we have anywhere with 93 to 97% here about the experience and the satisfaction that parents have with the support they receive from your principals and the support they receive from the central office staff relative to their children. There's also a finding relative to involvement here. As you can see, you have a high number, 99% of the parents are part of the IEP, and ARD being, we call it ARD in Texas team at the school. So we're really, we're very pleased for you all to have such a high level of satisfaction, and we would recommend just continuous improvement to do those fine things you're already doing, and those are stated here as involving the parents in the action planning relative to this report that we're going to share, distribute information. We had one thing that surfaced in the comments from parents is they would love to see more information about a peer support program that is a model program you have in your district, but it's not at every school. And it's a program to support social inclusion and belongingness, and it was certainly something you would want to showcase, and we recommend that you just spread that program and replicate it as often as you can. Same way with, and I think it's timely that the last recommendation is there in current parent participation in the zoning decision. So I think you covered that one tonight. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning. The other themes, two equally had some wonderful findings and recommendations. But theme 1 talks about a common vision and a commitment to educating all learners and children, especially children with disabilities. We have to be on the same page, have to be going in the same direction, and have the same beliefs about our youngsters. And across this country, you are moving away from your students and my students to our students. So we want to promote that shared ownership. We do know, it's clearly evident, there's a strong commitment to quality services for students with disabilities. There's multiple quality practices that we're seeing and that were outstanding and can be models, not only for your district from school to school, but for other districts in the state and in the country. We know that there's a high, your faculty expressed a high sense of shared ownership and responsibility for learners. And there's a strong commitment to inclusion of children. You exceed the state standard for the number of students with disabilities being in general education settings for more than 80% of the day. And so there's a commitment that's out there, and you're certainly in compliance with all of those standards relative to that. Still, the common vision on how we view students with disabilities, we think there is a need for, and we know you are in substantial compliance with the state and federal requirements pertaining to students with disabilities, with the exceptions of your overrepresentation of students with disabilities from minority subgroups. However, when compared to the state and the 9 comparable districts, they're all in the same, have the same compliance standard as you do. So we wanted just to point those out. Again, making recommendations. We also wanted to point out in shared responsibility and inclusion, there's a high level of commitment and ownership and knowledge about the students. However, there is a significant number of faculty believe that inclusion of students may have some harmful effects, and they're very concerned about that. We'll address that need later in the findings, later in the recommendations, because we feel like some of those feelings are reflective of some inefficient practices that can improve that belief that is evident there. So we just wanted to illustrate that as you see on the slide. So. Finding recommendations, commitment to quality services, again, review the reasons for the disparity regarding the shared responsibility. As we said, high level of feeling of shared responsibility, but a high level of concern of the benefit of inclusive practices in the schools. We think we can adopt a very system-wide model for inclusion, although you have inclusive practices going throughout the system, but a system-wide approach that focuses on 4 needs area and a needs-based model for staffing, and then looking at the compliance issues of overrepresentation that I know you're continuing to address. Theme 2, the next one really, we're on the third area though, however, is clear and consistent messaging. And what here we're seeing, and I would apply this finding to probably any district in the state or certainly in the country regarding special education services. As you know, it is a very complex, litigious, full of lots of regulations that are ever-changing, court decisions, et cetera, that really govern when we talk about special education services. So getting a clear and consistent message out that's consistent is often problematic in terms of looking at this type of services. What we're finding is that the messages and the directions aren't consistent across the district. You have made efforts to, there's a high level of respect and admiration and highly knowledgeable special education staff and leadership that is working at the school level to support the directions. However, sometimes the messages are confusing. So we are recommending that we look at a different way of messaging or some ways to continue to improve the quality of the messaging to the inconsistency that we see. This is a very typical finding that we would see anywhere. The same way also the organizational structure, we recommend that we may want to look at the way the organizational structure right now is that we have the special ed director in the curriculum and instruction, and we would like to see this individual have more access to the other department that oversees the principal in the governance of the programs at the school level, because there's so much involved in both sides of that. So we think that would be a great idea if we could move increase the role clarity for this individual, to give them more opportunities to interact, involve at the principal level as well as with curriculum instruction. So looking at separate housing or separate location to increase that level of involvement. So those are some of the recommendations we have to improve that messaging and the information that is shared, as well as improving the interaction between special ed leadership and the school-based leadership. The next theme had to do with highly effective instruction, and I guess this to me probably was one of my favorite parts in terms of looking at evaluations. Our firm, there are about 12 of us out there on any given day, and we probably spend about 80% of our time in classrooms with teachers on the front line. So we love to, we can quote the research and we can quote the data, but we really want to know that we've been in the classrooms and worked with lots of teachers all over the place. So we had the opportunity to go into your classrooms and look at the practices that we saw that support diverse learners and support the needs of students with disabilities. What we found in your schools, in the schools that we visited, and they were randomly selected, and the classrooms were too, your principals opened the doors to us. We were enabled us to go wherever we wanted to go and visit the classroom. So we don't feel like we were set up. I think they didn't. I don't even know if they knew we were coming. So we saw many practices that support diverse learners. As you can say, the climate of the school, welcoming and inviting. Learners were showcased, students were valued. It was clearly evident to an outside person walking into your room. We also saw your faculty has an understanding of the importance and use of accommodations, which is the first level of decision any teacher has to make about any learner in their classroom if they cannot perform in the learner activity as designed. So we have a faculty reports that they have a high level of understanding about accommodations, yet we didn't see consistent use of accommodations in classrooms. Your general education curriculum is the curriculum that is used and that is significant because for years special education evolved, had a separate system, separate place, separate location, separate curriculum, and only since really 2004, which sounds like, as I know, is almost 10 years ago, did the requirement for educating children with disabilities require that they receive the general education curriculum as the framework. But you and your district are using the general education curriculum as the framework consistently across all classes and for education students with disabilities. It may be accommodated, it may be modified, but it is followed. We saw a wide use of technology to support diverse learners, especially in the specialized classroom, including assistive technology. Positive behavior supports were evident in terms of the rules and routines and procedures that were in the classroom, as well as we saw in every classroom really appropriate student behavior. And then there's specialized support settings, and those are those specialized classrooms taught by special ed teachers. We saw really exceptional practices in those classrooms, highly structured, engaging instruction. So we saw wonderful practices that support learners. We did see more use of flexible grouping and activity-based instruction at the elementary level and less at the secondary level. That tended to be whole group instruction more in the classes that we observed. And the last thing we talk about quality practices that support diverse learners are when we had two adults in the classroom. Some people call this support facilitation or collaborative teaching. We saw a full range of structures, meaning multiple ways two people interact together in many classrooms. However, in many classrooms we saw more of a one teach, one assist, and we'd like to move away and recommend that you improve that practice. Instead of one teach, one assist, have some other things happening. So here's an illustration of the accommodations that your faculty perception about accommodations and some of the practices that are happening relative to those services in the classroom. We made some recommendations because we always want to improve the quality of instruction. I was pleased to hear you mention that you're looking to more project-based learning and you're looking to a standards-based report card and some other practices that you're embracing here. So we recommend continuation too of the practices that for all learners. We also want to think these practices that support all learners can be the foundation of your response to intervention process. We look at knowing-doing gap between I know what accommodations are, but implementing is another thing, that gap between the knowing and doing for teachers. We want to increase their repertoire, increase their practice in actually implementing rich accommodations that really bring learning within the reach of the learners. training in terms of looking at quality standards for what these classrooms should look like. What should a classroom look like when there are two teachers in the classroom, such as collaborative teaching, or when students go to another classroom, such as specialized support, and have a standard quality that is reflective across your district. We think that your response to intervention process, though you have a stated process, there is some confusion about that, and that is not a special education process, but it does impact special education because sometimes it is seen as the path to special education. So response to intervention, there was some confusion that we heard and saw about that process that we think would warrant some attention. And then, of course, training and professional development and content for special ed teachers to increase their knowledge and content of the curriculum standards, and then for for general ed teachers to increase their process and understanding of strategies for diverse learners. So all of those things are recommended as just another way for continuous improvement of the practice that you have. And those are outlined in detail on page 21 and 22 in your report. And the last section I'll talk about this evening, the mention in terms of our themes that we saw, had to do with staffing and scheduling. And I know we have an interesting finding about staffing and scheduling, and when we looked at surveys and talked to teachers and talked to focus groups. But one of the findings, and we're certainly standing by what we see, that we feel like your district is sufficiently staffed to serve students with disabilities, yet you're not richly staffed. So we want to know that you are sufficiently staffed based on what we saw, what the data revealed, and what we found out compared to other districts. Yet there's a strong perception among the faculty that additional staff is needed, and I think I have a slide that shows that perception. And so we have some possible reasons for that perception or that disparity in perception. Your parents feel like their students are receiving, 89% of your parents feel like the students are receiving the adequate support, but we'll look at your sufficiency staff. We know that compared to the state and compared to the comparable districts, and these are the ones that we compared you to, you are, you have a smaller staff to student ratio than many of the districts, as you can see outlined here, and it's definitely smaller than the state average and the average of the 9 districts, which was 14.7. You're at 12.3. But we don't believe in ratios alone, and I know you do not either. We don't use ratios alone to determine your adequacy of staffing. So we want to point out that there are some factors. What we saw are some efficiency factors that are impacting your perceptions about staff and their staffing, and we would believe that they can be addressed through a needs-based model for staffing and scheduling, where we analyze each student one at a time by their content and their grade level, first grade reading, second grade math, and we look at their precise level of curricular needs, their precise level of support needs, and then we build a master schedule around it, and we deploy the people that need to be there. That requires also a non-categorical approach to staffing, where we take the labels off the teachers too, and we deploy any teacher where they need to be. I'm talking about special education staff at this time. So a categorical and a needs-based approach to staffing would probably alleviate perceptions that you do not have sufficiency staff. Common planning time, frequently cited as an issue between general ed and special ed. If we're going to work together, it's hard to deliver that instruction where we shared if we don't have that common planning time. So there are ways to improve the planning time, first through scheduling in the master schedule, and if it can't be achieved that way, then we can build some other ways of finding time for people to plan. Some paraprofessionals are not always appropriately trained for the jobs that they're assigned to do. However, we saw some really good practices with your paraprofessionals and could require and could be involved in more training to support their roles and responsibilities. And then the other thing, the last thing, and all these are staffing and scheduling issues, the distribution of students who need in-class support was not always done in a way where scheduled in such a way that sometimes you were overloading classes with students with high-level needs, and then some classes were actually what I would say underloaded. So a more efficient scheduling approach would alleviate some of those concerns that I believe your teachers are having relative to providing the services and their concerns about inclusion. Now, that was a pretty quick review, and I want to point out to you we looked at we had some recommendations relative to this. So we looked at the quality standards, district-wide objectives for student-centered staffing and scheduling, training, and those models of in-class support. When we put two people in the classroom, it's a marriage of talents and temperaments. And so we have to provide the training on how we're going to implement those in-class supports. There are some questions about one-on-one paraprofessional, although that is not an assignment in your district, but the request can go through the student-centered process of decision-making to determine the amount of support a student needs throughout the day. And then looking at your support, and then peer inclusion and peer friendships, phenomenal, amazing, wonderful practice that you have that should be replicated as much as possible, and increasing those opportunities, as well as looking at the opportunities to increase the planning time, and then monitoring the success of a new approach to staffing so that you will ensure sufficiency and efficiency and effectiveness and appropriate use of staff. So that being said, this certainly was a long, involved process. We feel like it was a very thorough review. We had certainly the cooperation and support of your staff, and we are very grateful for being in your district and having the support that we had. We felt like we received really good information, and we hope that this information will help you only move on with your commitment to excellence. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Copeland. Just to reinforce this particular study that Stetson and Associates conducted was to help us be more efficient in the use of our resources, both the financial as well as our teachers. And I would like to recognize Dr. Paula Walker, if she is in here, and her special ed staff that's done a phenomenal job. Would you please stand and be recognized?
There's some over here.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Copeland.
Okay, moving on then to the action items. We're getting there, people. We're getting there. You're getting there. Okay, action item number 1, consider approval of new district logo. Dr. Haynes, are we going to pass it off to Ms. Permetti? Oh, I need a motion first. Motion.
I move to consider approval of the new district logo.
Motion, Ms. Foudy, second, Ms. Sheffield. Dr. Haynes or Karen? Want to give information?
As we have been discussing, the vote that has been recommended for the board to vote on was voted on by the community. We had over 5,800 votes for this particular logo, and we had over 6,000 participating. Actually, it was like 7,000 plus participating in the logo vote, but this was the winning logo.
Any discussion?
And just to clarify, we're not going to just get rid of everything with the old logo on it and put the new logo immediately on all of our items. It's going to be a gradual process to, for instance, if we have letterhead and it has the old logo on it, we will use all of that letterhead. We will use all of our business cards. We will, when we're out of letterhead, then we will order new letterhead with the new logo. So it's going to be a gradual process in shifting over to the new logo for the sake of being strategic with the cost.
This will take 2 to 3 years to phase in everything over from the old logo to the new logo. We have shared with all of our principals. They're very excited about having a new logo, and I know many are eager to order things and shirts. And what we have said is that you must use everything that has the old logo first. So when it's time to reorder, then you can reorder with the new logo. But we're not going to have any dumpster divers finding reams of paper that have the old logo on it. They're to utilize the old stuff. As far as uniforms, etc., when those wear out and it's time to reorder the uniform, then they will order the uniform with the new logo. But it'll be a streamlined process. It'll take over 2 to 3 years for everything to be flipped over. But once all the electronic materials will be turned over more quickly because it's at no cost. So once the board takes action, then we will know what direction to go into.
And we'll get that mobile app rolling.
The mobile app will launch next week.
Anybody else have anything? Okay. Ready for the vote? All in favor? That is unanimous. Moving on, I need a motion to consider approval of clarification of rezoning undeveloped area east of Josie Lane. Need a motion?
I move to consider the approval of clarification of rezoning undeveloped area east of Josie Lane.
We have a motion, I need a second. Second, Mr. McDaniel. Any discussion? Questions? Ms. Latham?
Who's on point for this, Kevin?
Dr. Rogers is. Then again, maybe not. Mr. Ellington?
The map, hold up. Let me find that map, not the other maps. I need a map. The map that was sent out with our board package was not very clear, and the one that was included in our board package in the beginning was even worse. So I brought my maps that I used, because I want to make sure that we're only talking about this area. The dirt.
Ms. Latham, one thing about this clarification is it certainly is easier to zone unpopulated areas.
No joke.
Still not easy, but it's easier. But if you take Josie, Josie Lane, there's unpopulated areas on both sides of Josie Lane, so Mr. Ellington worked on the map where the east side of Josie goes to Griffin Middle School and the west side goes to Lakeview Middle School. Does that answer your question?
Can I interject for a minute? So the map in our hands is correct. I think that was her question.
Yes, ma'am.
Because there was a clerical error on the map in our packet. But you've corrected it with the map in our hands.
Yes, ma'am.
And that clerical error was the area we rezoned last year from Killian to Lakeview on our map was not
When they
made into Lakeview. So we fixed that in this one.
When they redrew the maps, they left out the Meridian area, which we had already taken care of.
Got it.
So the map in your hands has Meridian back where it's supposed to be.
And this is just a clarification of what we voted on last year.
Right.
That's correct. When you voted last year, really specifically, you talked about the high school boundaries, and so this clarifies where those students would go to elementary and middle school.
Okay, but elementary is not spelled out on here. Does that matter? Right, but if
It
you put
gives the
these
description.
maps on the website and it doesn't show the elementary, we'll have another lynch mob after us.
The verbiage in the packet, though, states the elementary boundaries that accompany this map.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am, because the middle school map contains several elementary schools. So when you take care of the middle schools on both sides of Josie, it pulls in those elementary schools.
Any other questions, concerns? Debate? Okay, seeing none, ready to vote? All in favor? That is unanimous. Okay. Moving on to consider approval of Flower Mound High School feeder pattern rezoning recommendation. May I make a suggestion that the first motion has to do with elementary school, so we can get that?
Ms. Kyer, I move that we approve the map that we had already proposed. It's labeled ES Mod 2 for elementary schools.
I have a motion, Ms. Latham. I need a second, Ms. Duke. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That is unanimous. Okay, I need another motion, please.
Madam President, I make a motion, I move that we approve the middle school map that came out of the March 18th board meeting.
What's the label of that map, Ms. Duke?
I do not have that in front of me. It was, pardon me? No. It was. Mr. Rogers, can you tell me what that map, it was the only map we had that.
Mr. Ellington, can you tell us the name
Thank
of
you.
that map?
Yes. Yes, sir.
So my understanding, if I could ask, is that you just made a motion to go back and reconsider the map that we put on the table at the board workshop. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, I have a motion, Ms. Duke.
Is,
No, not the last board workshop, the one that we had at late February, wasn't it? What we're looking at is not the map on our agenda, the map that we had at our March 18th board meeting. It was the only middle school map that we.
It was from the February 26th meeting, Ms. Duke.
Yes.
That's correct.
Yes, that's the one that came out as the informational item.
that is correct, Ms. Duke. The item that came to you at the March 18th board meeting, not board workshop, March 18th board meeting was the February 27th map proposal.
This is the one that has Forest Wood Middle School at 8:23, McCamey at 10:35, Shadow Ridge at 6:28, right? Correct. Yes. Please, just let us. It has, we don't have that to be able to put up. I would really appreciate it up there. Thank you, sir. It has the Shadow Ridge zone stretching out past Shoreline Drive. So, yes. Oh, okay, I have motion and a second by Ms. Foudy. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, sir.
Ms. Kyer, while we're waiting, can I interject that certainly we would hope, first off, as a member, or really the facilitator of the committee that did a lot of work, and certainly as a member of administration, that as you deliberate what maps you choose, to please seriously consider expanding grandfathering. That's certainly something that administration recommends.
Well, we can talk about that now if you want. Yes, we can talk about, well, there's the map.
No.
That's not it, no. That's Mike's map. Oh, I'm sorry. No, it's the colors are different.
Oh, it still has the center people.
Yeah, we don't want the. We got more maps in AAA here. Thank you. Thank you for my map. I needed that. No, he's got the right map, Brenda. They just got to get it right, the right map up. Yeah, yeah. That's it.
The current map on the screen is the map that I'm proposing that we consider.
Okay, so now I have a motion and a second. Ms. Duke, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes. While, as we all know, none of the maps are perfect, but I believe this one gets us to the numbers that will work for our district. I truly just do not, as I stated at the workshop, I don't like the idea of splitting an elementary school. I have a hard time with those kids going to do two different schools. I think, I agree, I've had middle school kids, I've got one now, it just makes it really hard if you're going to split up the friendships, and it's just hard on the parents. So that is probably one of the biggest reasons, and I truly do have a hard time with if the bus rides do get beyond what we've discussed, the 40 minutes. I certainly wouldn't want any of our children on a bus for 50, 60 minutes at one time with traffic and the construction and such. So out of all the maps, I believe this one works the best for the majority of our students.
Ms. Sheffield?
Yes. I feel that, and I'll just say that this has not been an easy process, and those of you who served on the boundary committee, you know that it has been difficult. I think in all of our efforts to do the right thing, that we as a board made a few missteps, and not because we were looking out for our political careers, as has been suggested, or because we were catering to one group over another. I really feel like we've tried to do the right thing, and we've driven in your neighborhoods, and I've been down High Road at 8 a.m. in the morning, and I've been down Wichita Trail at 4:45, and so the problem that I feel like what we've done here in our efforts to do it right, I think we've stepped outside of the process, and we convened a process, a committee, to do this work, and we didn't honor that. The real issue I have really with anything outside of the initial proposals is that it doesn't honor the work of that committee. And the proposal that we've been looking at that is up right now, not this one, but the one that's proposal number 6 or whatever, that it overloads Shadow Ridge. So in that, I don't support this map, because I feel like we have to go back and look at what came out of committee. And if we make adjustments, we make adjustments there. And so in my proposal, I mean, I would say that the issue we had was the corridor. It's the families that live between Old Settlers and 2499, and that's where the issue is. So if that's the issue, and we're looking, I mean, we started with proposal number 2, I mean, that's where, when we started having these discussions, we started at proposal number 2. We felt like that was the best proposal moving forward. And we got hung up on the section. So when I look at it, I think that, and you play with numbers, and I've worked with Dr. Rogers and Mr. Ellington, that we can see those numbers, that we maintain the corridor and leave the rest of it alone for as far as Proposition 2 goes. And that's my thoughts. I mean, I think that the issue I had with the map that came out of our recent workshop was not even necessarily to do with travel times, because I know that, up until this point, that hadn't been something that no one had notified the district that was an issue. And we're not saying that we don't need to address that. But I think when you look at creating a solution and you look at boundaries, it isn't practical to include families that live on High Road, the northwest portion of the feeder, and send them to the southeast side. It just doesn't practically make sense, even though, and I think the reason we got there was that, we were so determined to reach a number, that was our driving goal. So, as we look at this, I feel like as a board, we do support generous grandfathering. I mean, we've not really addressed it or spoken to it formally, but I feel like that's something that we believe is important. But I just feel that, I felt like the two areas we stepped away from was the work of the committee and the necessity not to overload Shadow Ridge. And I think that's the two biggest issues I have with where we are now, and honoring that work. And if not, I know it's always been within our right to do whatever, but what's the point of the committee if we don't listen to what they said? They deliberated all of these scenarios that we've created. They looked at and deliberated in committee as well, and they rejected them for various reasons. So those are my 2 cents. Do we have those maps? Can you show what I'm talking about, Kevin?
Proposal
Yes.
2
Yeah, well, it would be, a modification of that would be 7 or 8. There's actually 2 different versions.
Yes,
You need
ma'am.
hard copies? Okay. Yes, please. I don't know if they have one over there. So actually, they're handing you 2 different versions. Essentially, if you look at actually number 8 is the exact southern boundary of Proposition 2. Modification 7 expands it over to areas 176 and 177. It's 25 kids in middle school. The rationale really had to do more with busing, and that those current bus routes run down Wichita Trail. Right now, they currently pick up an area to the north, but if they if there was this Shadow Ridge feeder, then they would not have those areas to the north. So those are just two different versions of kind of the same story.
Yes, please. We have a motion right now that's asking for approval of middle school, the middle school map, the other one that Ms. Duke talked about. Would you like to, you've already expanded on why, so we can still talk about this one, because we're just talking about general maps in general. Does anybody want to have any input on this one that you're looking at now from Ms. Sheffield?
Can we give our input in comparing the one that was?
Yes, you can talk about whatever you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the map, that one, yeah. The map that came out of the last month's meeting. I like this map. I think it's a good map. However, I like it because we're not splitting Liberty in that map. But I have, as I said in the workshop, we have this neighborhood right next to McCamey that could walk. And it's just, this, I had coffee with Dr. Waddell, a month and a half ago, and my literal comment to him was, zoning gives me hives, because you can't make everyone happy, and you want to, and as a parent, you understand every perspective. Everybody comes with a great reasoning behind why we should or shouldn't do something. And so my philosophy is I want to impact the fewest number of people possible. My main concern coming into this entire process was Forestwood, and that we needed to bring the numbers up at Forestwood so that they could have those electives that many people have discussed tonight. We want to provide every child with opportunities, the best opportunities possible. And so by bringing those numbers up at Forestwood, we can provide more electives. And kids can have a stronger program with band and orchestra because we'll have more kids. Parents have been coming to the mic for months now about that. And that was my big concern. My concern wasn't McCamey. I think McCamey's numbers show it will go down. However, if you move the numbers up at Forestwood, as all of you have known, as setting these maps, Shadow Ridge was too low. So we are left with the dilemma. What do we do? And Mr. Rogers said, Dr. Rogers said, in our very first meeting when he brought these maps to us, everybody is flustered, and the corridor, that area in the middle at the top, is what has the committee stalled. It has the committee struggling. And as a board, I think we've proven it has been a frustrating piece to us too, because you want to do what's right for everyone. So I look at that map and I think it's a good map, but I am, like everyone else, concerned with the middle corridor. So it's either move that corridor to McCamey, or in MS Mod 8, where you're moving the fewest number of people possible, you are taking a portion of Liberty out, but you're allowing those next to McCamey to still go to the middle school they're next to. So I think they're both good maps. They both make sense. It's just you have to reason and evaluate what is going to cause the least harm. And so the only thing that really gives me comfort in this whole process when we do come to a decision tonight is that all of these kids are Jaguars, and that all of you are one. In the end, all of your kids do end up at Flowerman High School. And we do have a very liberal grandfathering plan that I know a lot of us have discussed in a workshop. We have the local policy
allowing students to, in fifth grade, to go to the middle school that they anticipated. So we have a lot of measures in place to make this a flexible process over time, whoever makes the transition. So I really like MS Mod 8. I think it's a good, 8, because it impacts the fewest number of people, 7. But I could stick with the one that came out of the last meeting. I'm torn.
Would
And I
anybody-
like both of them.
Okay.
So.
Ms. Latham, would you like to speak?
We didn't like the original map that was brought to us just because of the numbers. It didn't get us where we wanted to. However, if we're going to grandfather everybody for 2-3 years, we're not going to get the numbers that we want for 2-3 years. I'm looking at the current middle school zone, and the number one priority for this whole rezone had nothing to do with anybody making any money. It didn't have anything to do with town of Flower Mound, nothing else. Number one was Forest Wood. There are students there missing out on programs that other kids get to the benefit of. There are teachers there teaching multiple classes at multiple grade levels. They are not working in the same environment as their peers across the district. That's not the right thing by our students or by our teachers. Number two was McCamey. McCamey is overcrowded. Again, that's not the right thing for the students, and it is not the right thing for the teachers. And the teachers have been complaining about McCamey for a while now. A while, the 3 years that I've been on the board. Could you please help me do something? Number three came to us late in the game, and that was the approval and the changing of DFW Lakeside. It was no longer going to be what we originally thought. Tommy Ellington and I believe Mr. Rogers went back, talked to the developer, got some more information, and those numbers increased. So that was the third mix that came to the party late. But nobody has any inside track. We're still not really sure what Lakeside's going to be, but we do know that ground's starting to move. So we need to do something. We're trying to be proactive instead of, oops, now we got to hurry up and do something. But if you look at the current map of middle schools and the proposal that Ms. Duke made a motion on. Hang on, I got to get my maps back in order. Thank you. Yep, I have it underneath this one, sorry. The only thing different is that Garden Ridge was moved. We all know how Garden Ridge feels about that. And asked, the corridor still, I can't wrap my head around them not being able to walk to school and me having to pay $30,000 a bus to send them to a school that when they could have just walked to a school. So we still have to solve our problems. We still have to raise the number at Forestwood, we have to decrease the number at McCamey, and we have to make room at Shadow Ridge for this new development that's coming in. It is, in my opinion, that the proposal that Ms. Sheffield has given, which she calls, or it's labeled on here, as MS Mod 8, and I'm going to read this off for y'all, so get your pens and paper out so you can write it down, because I know you'll be on Facebook as soon as you get home tonight. Yeah. Now then, you're looking at the map that came out of the last board meeting. Looks like this. Yeah, and it's up there on the screen. Ms. Sheffield's proposal moves section 206, 206B, 207, and 292 to McCamey. And it changes section, but, I'm reading it off for them because they'll want the map right now. So it's moving section 188, 185, and 182, and 178 to Shadow Ridge. Now,
Again, there is nothing that we can do up here to do what's right for our students and to use our district resources, which is teachers and building facilities. There is nothing that we can do to do what's best for both of those two things and make anybody in Flower Mound happy. Nothing we can do. But it is our job to make that hard call. So I do support modifying the map from our last board meeting with Ms. Sheffield's suggestions that I just read off.
Mr. McDaniel, would you like to speak?
I do, I don't like any of them, but most of all, I cannot support sending those kids from, is it Churchill, Sagebrush, and is it Adams Estates? Yes. Yeah, you know, all that way. And as far as the rest of it, I can live with anything, any of it, but I can't live with that. I can't support that. I can't support somebody living 200 yards from a school being bused across town.
In looking at these two maps that we've had up on the screen, and comparing the map that we came in with tonight from the last workshop, this map that we see up here on the screen is, in my opinion, a very nice, happy medium compromise. Some people aren't going to feel that way, but I agree with Mr. McDaniel. That corridor is just really, and we have all found it's just been a big concern. And so MS Mod 8 is something I could work with. I think it brings the two maps together somewhat.
Y'all had your time to talk. Now it's our turn.
Ms. Duke?
I'm good.
Good right now? Okay. That she's good right now, so she doesn't want to give her opinion. She already spoke to her emotions, so I guess she doesn't want to. Yes, Julie.
I just wanted to add one more piece of information. With the middle school numbers we have here, if I take those areas and I add them up, and Tommy, clarify for me, these maps where we have numbers by area, are those current numbers or numbers projected to come up? Okay, so that's current number of middle schoolers in those areas. Okay, so we have 95 in the 95 students in the bottom. That would be coming from Liberty, correct? We have the numbers right here: 6, 8, 41, 11, I believe. Let me read them all. 19 and 10. And that was just a point I wanted to make, in that if you add those up, you get about not quite 100 kids from that area, the 6th through 8th grade.
Okay. You're splitting Liberty. I mean, you talked about what the community said, and they said they wanted to keep all the elementary schools together as much as possible. Were you splitting Liberty? I understand that, you know, with the Sagebrush Drive area and Adams Estates, that they want their kids to be able, if they're grandfathered in, they'll be able to walk still because they're going to be grandfathered in. The kids so they'll be able to walk, and they're going there, and if their brother's a 7th grader and their sister's a 5th grader incoming next year when he's an 8th grader and she's a 6th grader, they'll be together, they can walk together. The sibling rule will apply. I don't want to split, like everybody's been saying, and I've been hearing it from every board member here, that middle school's tough, and I mean, I hated middle school, to tell you the truth, and we only had 7th and 8th grade. But it's not very athletic. But anyways, I just don't like the fact that it would be splitting Liberty. And, okay, I will admit, everybody knows that, I am the one from Flower Mound here, and I know the topography out here is just awful. I mean, it's a beautiful area, but to get around from one area to another, yes, some people say, well, they bought a house out there. Well, maybe that's the house they could afford. Maybe that's where they decided they wanted to live because whatever reasons. But I don't think they should be punished because they decided to live in West Flower Mound. So, sorry. So what I can't, as much as I appreciate the hard work that Ms. Sheffield put in to her 2 maps, I still prefer the map that that was at the February board meeting. I support. So that being said, we have a motion on the table and everybody's been spoken. Yes, Mike did, yes. Yeah, I tried to go last. We have a proposal, a motion. We can vote on that motion, and if it fails, we can go on to, and somebody else can make another motion, or we could amend the motion that is sitting on, whichever you guys prefer, whatever you feel comfortable with. We can vote on Kathy's motion right now, yes? Okay, so seeing no further discussion, all in favor of the motion on the table, please say aye. Aye. Those not in favor, please say. So that was Ms. Duke and Ms. Kyer in favor, Mr. McDaniel, Ms. Sheffield, Ms. Foudy, and Ms. Latham against. So that fails. So moving on, I would like the board to entertain another motion.
I move that we approve modification 8.
A second.
I have a motion to approve modification MS Mod 8 by Ms. Sheffield and a second by Ms. Latham. Any further discussion?
Well, I do. You know, while I understand Ms. Sheffield's concerns about the committee, I also know that we've each talked to so many of the committee members, and they have looked at all the different maps, and they did try to narrow it down, but one of their objectives was not to split an elementary school, and that's what this does. So there's good and bad, but, I think we have worked very well with the committee, especially for the first year having a committee to do this. They did so much. They are amazing men and women, that's for sure, but I just can't support splitting the elementary school.
Okay, Mr. McDaniel?
Yes, Mr. Ellington, in this modification 8, it says that McCamey will have 1,062. Does that include the grandfathering? Okay, and what will the grandfathering do to those numbers? Okay. And the functional capacity is? Not the functional capacity.
Mr. McDaniel, as far as capacity, if you remember when at the board workshop, we met with principal, we met with PBK, our architects, looking at all the capacities of the 11 schools. If you do not count the portables, and there are 9 portable classrooms at McCamey, then the optimal capacity, which is at 90%, is 931. But that does not count 9 classrooms, 25 in a class, that's 200, 200 kids.
And we're not going to be moving those portables day one, right?
No, ma'am.
And what are we projecting the same numbers to be in 3 years when the grandfathering has passed on? And the numbers have dropped?
I think when you look at the demographic study, Mr. McDaniel, certainly this year's seventh grade class is a large class. So when they cycle through the school, through grandfathering, certainly the numbers automatically are going to go down. They're not going to get in the 900s. And certainly when you grandfather, it's going to take longer to get to your target numbers. But certainly, some of the people have said, and some of y'all have noted, that certainly the numbers at McCamey will get a little better in the near future when those large classes cycle through.
What about the 6th and 5th grade classes? Are they large also, or are they?
And Mr. McDaniel, I can be a little more specific with enrollment numbers. Currently in 6th grade, as of March 1st at McCamey, there's 360 students versus there's 410, so 50 less than the 7th grade class, which is the largest class. Certainly when you look at Wellington, Old Settlers, and Liberty, now this year's 5th grade class at Liberty has 158, 4th grade at 172. You add that to Wellington, 159 and 162 respectively, and then Old Settlers is 125, both in 4th and 5th grade. So, you add that up, I haven't, but it's about 375, or 400, 4 plus. But certainly this year's 7th grade is the largest class.
I really don't care for the map, but it appears to be the less of all evils.
I don't know if you all got a chance to look at the bus routes that were sent, or that you have. Route 402, McCamey Middle School. The kids that we were talking about that live off of Sagebrush and that live off of Harris Road, coming down Old Settlers as they cross Peters Colony, they do ride a bus. You're talking about kids that were walking from Churchill and stuff like that. They ride a bus.
Which one?
Route 402. Okay. Just a little information, because we're talking about them walking and everything, but they're on a bus because Sagebrush is a hazardous route, first of all, because there's no sidewalks on Sagebrush, and it's a country road. So it does come down Old Settlers. Old Settlers, goes Old Settlers, Peters Colony, goes down, actually, Long Prairie, comes down off of there's a bus stop, number 26 at Devonshire Court, number 27 and 28. There's 3 along Sagebrush, and then it continues down to McCamey. So those kids are on buses. And we're talking about walking.
Why is that? Tommy, can you tell us why that is, though? Because is it just the sidewalks? Is that
Yeah, if there's
why?
no sidewalks. If there's no sidewalks, they get a bus. Yeah, especially Sagebrush, because I watch the buses go down Sagebrush, and they give me the heebies. It's a country road.
As we discussed in the workshop, 206, which I believe is the Lake Forest 2 area, if we keep that at McCamey, then we cut off the top of that corridor. And so, and 206B. So, again, that's my dilemma, okay? So those people that live there, right there where they can see the school, go to the school, and then we have to split Liberty, or we don't split Liberty, and people who look at a school don't go there. And I struggle with that. I struggle with that 206 area. I said it in the workshop, and I don't like splitting Liberty, but I also know we have to split at Old Settlers. And so it was already done. It's not ideal, but neither is looking at a middle school and not being able to go there when you can walk there.
All right, so we have a motion on the table for MS Mod 8. Is there any further discussion on MS Mod 8? Seeing none?
Ms. Kyer, I apologize, but
You
I'm
want to
just
put something with the
asking
grandfathering?
if we could please make sure and address whatever the board wishes to do regarding grandfathering when we finalize your motions.
Yes. Well, first of all, Ms. Sheffield, would you like to amend your motion to include grandfathering? Include some grandfathering. You just amend the motion. Yes, Dr. Rogers, could you specify the specifications for the grandfathering?
Yes, ma'am. Currently in board policy FDB local, current fourth graders and current seventh graders in board policy are automatically grandfathered. The talk of the majority of the committee and certainly administration's beliefs is that that certainly needs to be expanded at least by one grade. You may want to consider current fifth graders. You've heard, I think, some fair concerns by parents regarding, registration materials and the timing in April that you might want to consider even expand that to fifth grade.
I move to amend MS Mod 8 with the inclusion of grandfathering 5th through 7th.
And siblings.
And siblings.
Okay, so now we need to vote on the amendment that Ms. Sheffield just stated.
Well, and I second her amendment.
Thank you for seconding, Ms. Latham. Now we need to vote on the amendment. We're not voting on the actual zoning, we're just voting on the amendment. I just want to make that clear. Did you get it right? Is that correct?
I'm sorry, Ms. Skyer.
It's okay. Well, we get a motion in a second, so we'll have a discussion on the grandfathering portion.
Well, I think I've kind of stated my thoughts on that. I feel like some of this, because of the lateness in the process, that's where we have to go down. I think it's only right to include fifth graders at this juncture. And then, and I've stated before, I think middle school is one of those years, or those times that it does more harm than good to pull sixth graders out and move them to a different school. So that's why I would support 5th through 7th for this, looking at the middle school zone.
Would anybody like to speak to the amendment? All in favor of the amendment? That's unanimous. Okay, moving on to the amended motion now. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That is Ms. Latham, Ms. Fowdy, Ms. Sheffield, Mr. McDaniel in favor. Those against? Mrs. Kyer and Mrs. Duke against. Thank you all very much for your hard work. Thus being said, we need to move on to the consent agenda.
Madam President, I recommend that we approve all consent agenda items as presented to us by the administration.
I have a motion, Ms. Latham. I need a second, please. Second, Ms. Duke. Any discussion?
Yes, I would like to pull some.
Of course you would. It's only 11 o'clock. We got
I
an hour.
know, they'll be easy to,
That's okay. Which ones would you like to pull, Mr.
I would like to pull KC2, which is CSP 2274, HVAC,
KC2,
KC4,
KC4,
and KD14.
C2. 2C2. Say those again. I'm sorry, Mr. McDaniel.
Okay,
2C2?
no.
No?
2KC2. No.
Okay,
Wait,
there's no K.
time out. Yes. Page 100, yes. And then page 106,
The cooler freezer replacement?
and then page 129, I believe.
D14.
C14.
D14.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second, but we need to pull off,
Ms. Carr, I'd like to amend my motion that we approve all consent agenda items as presented with the exception of 2C2 and 2D14.
and 2C4.
2C4.
2C4, thank you.
Yes. Okay, so a vote on the amendment to the motion? All in favor? That is unanimous. Okay, so we now go back and vote on the consent agenda as amended. All in favor? Then we'll go back and just, all in favor? That's unanimous. And then go back and discuss the items that Mr. McDaniel pulled. Mr. McDaniel, have questions?
Yes. My question is, why do we only have one vendor that's bidding on an HVAC controls replacement?
Mr. Martin? You should always stay to the end.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
Board of Trustees, Dr. Waddell. On this specific bid, it's somewhat cohesive. These parts, I know Irene can speak of it a little bit more in detail. We went through PBK and they designed the project, but there's not a lot of vendors that can provide these products, these specific controls. And so I don't believe, we advertise for the bids, we give notices out to contractors, and we want as many bids as possible, but we only did have one. I did speak with Irene about that today, and she had explained as well that there's not a lot of vendors in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that would bid on something like this, because it is some specific controls.
So I guess my question of that then is, we design a system that's so narrow and focused that only one vendor can provide the product? That doesn't sound...
I believe others can provide the product. We only had one vendor. I believe they've got other projects going as well, and from the timeline as well as the location, that we had one vendor. We want as many vendors as possible to bid.
That size of a project, that concerns me, It's almost carte blanche, How much do you want for your product?
Jean, excuse me, I have a point of order. Jeannie, did I ask for a motion to discuss this? Okay, so I didn't ask for a motion to discuss the items that he pulled. I don't think I did. Can we go back and do this? I'm sorry, I need a motion. Mr. McDaniel, second, Ms. Duke, okay. I just want to be all legal.
What is the motion?
Discuss the ones that you pulled.
Approve it or disapprove?
Well, to discuss.
You got, no, you have to make a motion to approve it or disapprove it, not to discuss it. You discuss it after you've made your motion.
Oh, sure, get technical on me.
Well, I will move to disapprove bid.
All of them?
No, just the one.
Okay, well, no, well, you pulled a number of items off.
Yeah, just the CSP number 2274 HVAC.
So you want to do individual motions for each one?
Yeah, I'd like the clarification on the three.
Okay, so since you want a different motion for each of the three that you pulled out, if you could, we can do each one separately. Okay, so. I know, but we got to finish, we got to clean up the legalities first, I'm sorry. Yes?
So the motion was to not approve K2C2. And
Number
did
14.
Ms. Duke keep her second?
Okay, yes. Okay,
Okay.
we'll just do it that way. All right. Irene?
Mr. McDaniel, you bring a good point, but as a district, you've standardized and it controls manufacturer because it provides you a huge amount of savings in the maintenance and operations side to standardize into one system. That way you have pieces and parts, it's easier to maintain, you know it provides you energy savings in the end. In order to obtain other proposals, the company that you've standardized to as a district, there's companies that can bid from other areas of Texas. So this is the Dallas representative, somebody from Austin could bid on the project, somebody from Houston can also bid. Or an HVAC contractor could also submit a proposal on the project. So you still have the possibility of competitiveness. The issue is that many of them know that they're not going to be as competitive and they're not going to be able to give you a number. So several of them opted not to submit a proposal at this time.
So we design a system that we know is going to have a tight supply and few bidders.
We specified a system that as a district you have standardized on across the board for all your facilities.
And we couldn't have gone with another system that,
We could bid another manufacturer and have the numbers compete, but then that would immediately add more cost to you on the maintenance and operations side because you would have now to maintain and support more than one system.
so that you're telling me that's a system that's already prevalent throughout the district?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
The way I understood it is we already have this system, but for some reason, we have a little over 300 controllers that are a different brand, I guess. And they're harder to support, and we're having a hard time finding replacement parts. So that's why they're wanting to replace these 300. But my guess is on a job this small, 328 controllers, and these companies are probably all building new school buildings and installing complete HVAC systems. They probably wanted to pass on this bid.
And it's also, you can compare it to having a 72 Chevy in each school, that we have the 72 Chevys, we can't replace them all because we're having a hard time getting parts. But it's also similar to what we went through when we were when we had our food program inside in the district, and it was harder for us to buy stuff because nobody really wanted to put the energy into selling to such a small group.
Exactly.
Because they could go and make more money and they're putting their energy in someplace else.
Absolutely.
So that's, yeah, so.
Yeah.
Okay. So the motion is to disapprove those three items that Mr. McDaniel listed. So, just one? Okay. Just the one. All right. All in favor of disapproving? Mr. McDaniel. All those opposed? Everybody else? Ms. Duke, Ms. Kyer, Ms. Sheffield, Ms. Foudy, and Ms. Latham. Moving on.
We need a motion whether to approve it.
I make a motion to approve.
K2C2.
Yeah, that one.
Okay. We have a motion to approve K2, C2? And a second, motion and a second? He does not want to speak to, do you want to, no? Okay. Mr. McDaniel, do you have a question? Or anything? Okay. All in favor? Ms. Duke, Ms. Kyer, Ms. Latham, Ms. Sheffield, Ms. Foudy, those opposed? Mr. McDaniel. And I believe before, I should have said this before everybody left, This is Ms. Fowdy's last meeting with us. We do? C4. I thought we just did that one.
We still have C4. Need a
What did-
motion.
Madam Chair, I make a motion
I'm sorry, now I'm
to
confused. That's not
approve
good.
Consent agenda item 2C4, CSP number 2276-13, cooler/freezer replacement at Heritage Elementary School.
Motion, Ms. Fowdy, motion, Ms. Latham, second, Ms. Fowdy. Any discussion?
Once again, only one bidder on a cooler, and
We do have multiple manufacturers. It's a very aggressive schedule because a cooler is down and it needs to be replaced. And because of that, we had limited participation. We called every food service vendor, we notified them, they just said they could not meet the schedule. So the price is very appropriate, is underneath the budget that we established for the project, so we felt comfortable in recommending to move forward.
okay.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That's unanimous.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve consent agenda item 2D. 2D14, technology van buy board number 358-10.
I have a motion, Ms. Latham, second, Ms. Fowdy. It's a little team thing going on. Okay, so discussion. Mr. McDaniel,
No bid, just buy? There's,
the buy board.
Yes, sir. We purchased off the interlocal cooperative contract. We did get quotes. This
Okay.
quote was approximately $400 higher than the lowest. This one's local. Sampac is local in Carrollton, and we could also get it within 2 weeks from the once it's approved.
okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other discussion, questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That is unanimous. Any more? Just double checking. Seeing none, no further business before the board. The meeting is adjourned. It is 11:02, and this is Ms. Fowdy's last meeting. So can we all say, hey, thank you? Thank you for everything that you've done for 3 years.
Okay, people in the audience, who has this Texas Ranger game score? 5-4 Rangers, thank you, sir.